There we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our 220-1001 Core 1 A+ study group. Actually, it's the pre-show. So if you've tuned in for the study group, it's 11:50. We start at noon, so you can, if you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward if you want to, or hang out with us in the live stream. Hello, chat room. Hello, everybody watching the chat room right here. Checking in. Nice to have you here. I think it's nice to be here myself. Looks like I've got recordings. Have I got those recordings going down there? I think I do. I think I set those earlier. Yes, I do. Those look good. So my Cylons are down there recording. This is recording on the UBS device. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. We've got all Q&A today from the Core 1 exam. So all new stuff. Every month is all new stuff, though. Write new questions every month for this. So it'll be something you've never seen before. You can't Google it. You can't cheat. Well, I guess you could cheat. You could come in here at night and take all the questions. All the questions are online, so you just have to break into the cloud provider and get all the questions. That's not what you should do, but that's how you could do it. That went a little sideways there for a second. But they're all new questions, things you haven't seen before. Let's get our phone charged up. You know what I need to do is get air conditioning on because it's going to warm up in here because of these lights. So you can't really see the lights. I guess if I move back just a little bit, you can start to see the light from this side. It's the one that lights the back because it's turned off in here right now. Let's turn on cooling for, it's a good temperature. Hey, chat room. All you passed your 1001 on the second attempt. Very nice. And then you already took the 1002. You went boom, and then right into the other one. Your retakes Thursday. Well, I don't know. This will give you a lot of content for Thursday, but it will certainly help those planning for the 1001. Topics for discussion today are anything that is listed in the CompTIA exam objectives for the 220-1001. In the first hour, I'll be asking you questions from those exam objectives. In the second hour, I open up phone lines and take questions from the chat room. So you can ask me questions in the second part of the live stream. So it's a little bit of the topics are really up to you. Whatever you would like to call in and talk about, whatever you would like to ask about in the chat room. It could be anything from A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, IT in general, careers, or what I'm playing on Xbox right now. I don't know. It could be anything. It could be what my favorite color is. I don't know if I could say what my favorite color is because I use that. That's one of those things, like you don't want to give people now any birthday information, anything about the first car you ever had, nothing about your parents, your mom's maiden name, because we're using that content now for authentication. We never know. Oh, if you're asking me for colors, you might be trying to break into my account. I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but those are the things we think about now. At least those of us in security think about these things now. Like, I'm not going to tell you my favorite color. That's private information. We could never share that with somebody, just giving them your favorite color. What were we thinking? So there you go. MCSEGPL, Miskabul, said it passed the Security 501 exam. Congratulations for that. And passed A+ and Network Plus. Come on. You're killing it. You're doing got the trifecta. Congratulations. That's fantastic. OM in the chat room passed your Core 1 today. Congratulations also. Very nice. Yeah, I know. The A+ is a big exam. A lot of content. And you'll find a lot of these exams, industry exams, some are extensively wide in breadth. You've got a lot to learn on some of these. Microsoft exams are that way. There's our 5-minute warning. I'm guessing the tweets will go out on the tweeter. I'm going to pull up my tweeter and see if I show up. That's the real key. Mostly it's just Rackspace and Cloudflare tweets. That seems to be all that's popping up. We'll put that's not where I wanted to put that tweet. I want the whole thing. There we go. Go over here for the time being. Very nice. Thank you for your support of the practice exams. Remotely helpful in the chat room. I think that's fantastic. Thank you for your support for those. It becomes really useful, I think, as well. I think very good. It's very good to read through my practice exams. Even when you get it right, there are things in the explanation of what's wrong that can also give you good information. So that's one of those situations. That it might be good for you even if you do know the answers. I think it's best if you don't, because then you actually learn something new. So, what else we got going on? We about 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes. We'll get started here to get things going on. We'll have to see how that works. Of course, it should work pretty well. There is quite a bit that we're going to go through today. I try to step through all of the different domains of the exam, so there's not any one single topic we cover, for those of you asking. Not what we're going to do. Now, of course, this is Tuesday, April the 6th. On the 8th, on Thursday, 2 days from now, we'll do the Core 2 study group. So got going on there. In an old study group, 2 dogs and a horse is indeed what I had. Unfortunately, my horse, he was an old guy, and he passed away, sadly. But the 2 dogs are still here. There's always a couple dogs around somewhere for this, but I don't have a horse anymore. Really, it was Mrs. Professor Messer's horse. I just paid for the hay. That was my job. Not really a horse person. There are horse people. I wasn't one of them, but she is. She likes her horsies. But we got 2 golden retrievers. I'll have to find a picture of the golden retrievers because the doors are closed. They will not come galloping in here during the live stream looking for pets. Instead, they are out there, not bothering us. Probably sleeping. If they're not eating, they're sleeping. It's not a bad gig, really. That's what you're looking for. Have this. That was Jimmy. That was Jimmy Dean. Jimmy Dean was my horse. Jimmy Dean was a horse that we adopted from Walt Disney World, where he was Mulan's horse. He was a horse that pulled things in the parades. We actually think he's probably on one of these Disney parade videos that you sometimes see published by Walt Disney. But he was a great horse. He was an old horse. He had a great life. He was so happy with people, got to hang out at Disney World, then came retired at our house. What a good horsey. That's been years ago. I haven't paid for hay in quite some time. So we could do that again someday because that was a lot of fun, having a horse. We really didn't ride him. We really did. It was more just a pet. It was retirement. So that's kind of how that worked out. He just kind of hung out and ate peanut hay and enjoyed himself, which I guess that's nothing. You can't ask for better than that. That's pretty good. Let's see if we can get some of this going. We've got tons of questions today. I have some new things to talk about here in the first part. So you're here on a good day because I have fun new things. Well, I don't know about fun, but it's new for me, and it's something that could help you. We'll talk about it in a moment. We're about to get started. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Mr. Sinatra. Get things going over there. What do you have to do to renew your certifications? Boy, what a question. There's a lot of things you could do to renew your certification. There's tons of things you can do. There's a huge section of the CompTIA website that will take you hours to read through. That will explain the different ways that you can renew your certification. And the easy way is Cert Master CE and you're done. Cert Master CE for continuing education. Top of the hour, everybody. Let's get the presentation going. It is Keynote. There it is. Let's look for our big green light. That's the wrong button. That's the green light. That looks good. I think with that, it's time to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2021 Professor Messer Core 1. That's our 221,001 A+ study group. Hello, chat room. Hello, everyone else. We are here, and we've got questions for you that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Stick around. I'll show you in a moment how you can answer all of these questions online. It's quite a whole system that we have here to get this going. So I will, of course, walk through some of those and give you some information about those in just a moment. In this first hour, we'll take questions, or I'll give you questions that come from those CompTIA exam objectives. I'll tell you all about where the objectives are and where you can get your hands on those. And also in the second hour, I open up the phone lines and I give you a chance to ask questions yourself. So there's always something going on here. If you would like to participate and you're here live, here's what you do. Pop open a new browser window, go to this link, professormesser.com/QA. That is the link that will allow you to answer in real time. Now, if you're watching this in the replay, that link isn't going to provide you with anything. It'll be just blank or empty. There won't be anything in there. So you'll want to browse to that link to be able to answer the question that I am about to give you. There's also an app you can get for your mobile device. This is the Socrative Student app. There's a Socrative Teacher app. That's the one for me. You don't want that one. You want the Socrative Student app. And it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, lowercase, I think. I don't know that that matters. All one word, though, does. Professor Messer, Professormesser. Make sure you spell it right so you get in there with the right room. You'll be in the wrong room if you type the wrong thing. There won't be anybody in there. You don't want to be in that situation. If you do all of that and it all goes well, there will be a question there waiting for you that is what we call our rewind question. It's a question from last month to see if we're able to get in and answer questions properly. And the question asks, which of the following would be the best choice for a video editing workstation? Would it be SSD, high-end cooling, gigabit NIC, TV tuner, or a RAID array? Which of the following would be the best choice for a video editing workstation? Would it be SSD, high-end cooling, gigabit NIC, TV tuner, or RAID array? Now, if you think you know the answer, our standing rule is do not answer in the chat room. You instead want to go to the link that's on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer, and we will come back to this question in just a moment. Well, thank you for being here. We have so much to go through today. I have a few announcements here at the beginning, so we can go through some of this. This at the beginning section that we have is there to be able to give you an idea of where our new videos are. We're always putting new videos out. They're always available. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Right now, I'm putting out a lot of Security Plus videos. I think we put out about 10 videos over the last week. There's even more coming. I've got tons that I've queued up and I'm editing, and that's all I do today is just edit things. You'll be able to see those on YouTube. Don't forget about our daily A+ pop quizzes. You can find those on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, or if you prefer a pretty picture with your question, you'll get exactly the same question on Instagram at professormesser.com/Instagram. If you're watching this video, you can earn an hour of continuing education unit credit in the webinar category. If you go to professormesser.com/ well, I don't have a link for that. It's actually CompTIA's website that has the details on the CEUs, which are the continuing education units. But if you listen in this first hour, you don't have to go to a website. I'll explain to you how you can earn that, well, by just watching this live stream, by just participating, just hanging out with us. Stay tuned for that. We've also got a breakdown of what exams we're working with right now here in April of 2021. The 2A+ exams are the 221,001 and 221,002. You have to take and pass both of those exams to earn your A+. You'll notice this was released on January 15th of 2019. That means that this exam is scheduled for retirement on July of 2022. So you have well over a year before this exam ever goes away. I suspect it probably will get pushed a little bit because Security Plus and Network Plus got pushed a bit, probably because of the COVID shutdowns. So this will probably push as well. But if we were doing our math, That's what we think it is. You can always check back with the CompTIA website, and I highly recommend you do so to check the exam all of the exam retirement dates. These are 2 exams. They're 90 minutes on each exam. On the 1001, you have to score 675 on a scale of 100 to 900. Kind of an odd scale, but there it is. On the 1002, you have to do a little bit better. You have to earn a 700 on a scale from 100 to 900. Now, if you have older study materials that are the 900 series, I highly recommend you get better study materials, because on the 1001, over 20% is new. Same thing for the 1002. So a huge bit of the exam is brand new content. So if you're studying from older materials, you're probably missing just enough information to make you fail the exam. So don't be in that situation either. You don't want that to happen with anything that you're doing. The exam topics we're going to cover today are from the 220-1001, what we call the Core 1 exam. This covers mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware network troubleshooting. So I'll try to cover all of those topics in the questions that we deal with today. Probably not all the topics, but we cover each one of those domains in some degree during this live stream. Don't forget that not only are all of my videos available, they're available for free for you to watch online at any time. You can watch every video. There's no registration. There's no paywall. There's nothing there that is going to require you to stop. I want you to have full access to all of these videos. And so all of my videos are available for free there on the YouTube. But there's other materials that might help you. I have course notes. I have practice exams. I can give you downloadable versions of the videos. I have downloadable versions in audio form. There's my exclusive Exam Hacks ebook. All of these things are bundled together into my success bundles. You can find out more about this at ProfessorMesser.com/1001success. There's also some free Q&A available on my website. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/Take10. Those are my Take 10 challenge questions. 10 questions at a time. They're archives from our study groups, and you'll find questions there from A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups. Lots of questions there, hundreds of them. Go have a look through some of those. It might prepare you for your 1001 or 1002 A+ exam. A video replay of this live stream is available immediately afterwards on YouTube. There is also an audio podcast flavor of this that I post later in the day, usually. I try to. You can find a copy of that and links so that you can add it to your podcast listening program at ProfessorMesser.com/podcast. That will get you exactly what you're looking for. If you stop back in about a day on YouTube for the YouTube replay, there is indeed a set of timestamps that show up in the YouTube video description. And you can click on those timestamps. They go directly to that section of the video, so you can find exactly what you're looking for very, very quickly. We aren't able to do this automatically. My marketing manager, Lori, who is watching this replay, everybody say hi to Lori. Hi, Lori. She is watching this and putting the timestamps in. So there's no easy way to do that other than going through it at 2x speed or whatever she does to make all of that happen. Those are available about a day afterwards. You can go back years and grab these timestamps. Very useful, I think, to have that on there as well. Don't forget about my course notes. They're available on my website. If you're interested in getting all of the information from my videos in both digital or physical form, these course notes have everything that you're looking for. Everything from the video course, which is a lot of video, 137 videos for Core 1 and Core 2 together. So this is one that really does help to have those capabilities. Find out more about those course notes, ProfessorMesser.com/1001notes. Something new. I promised you something new on the live stream today. Although I did sort of announce it last week on the Security Plus, is on my website. I used to have discounted vouchers. You could purchase your vouchers on my site and get a discount. You don't have to pay full price. But those went away. Well, they're back. Finally. So you can now get discounted vouchers on my site instead of having to pay the full price. It's around about a 9 to 10% discount, depending on which voucher you're getting. Right now, I have A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus there, but if you'd like to see some others show up, you can do that as well. Here's what's nice about this. If you buy the voucher from my site, I'll give you my Exam Hacks book for free. So that book that I wrote specifically to help you with the testing process. So it's not specific to A+ or Network Plus or Security Plus. It's specific to CompTIA exams. So if you want some strategies on how to study prior to going into the exam room, you want some strategies on how to earn some points during the exam, I've got some tips in here that might help you, and things that you can do afterwards if perhaps the exam didn't go so well. There are some tips and study hacks, some life hacks in there that can help you with that piece. So if you are not a student, if you're a student, you probably want to go to the academic store. If you are a college student who is in classes, you can buy discounted vouchers on the academic store. But for the rest of us, you've now got voucher discounts available, plus a little bonus. You won't get those exam hacks anywhere else. That is exclusive to ProfessorMesser.com. And if some of you are just wanting to help support the site, this does support the site. And you need a voucher anyway. So come on by, get your discount voucher here. It usually takes me less than a day to turn this around and get it back to you. But I think that will get you where you need to be. That's at ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. So I've got a lot of questions answers that have come in for this one. The question was, which of the following would be the best choice for a video editing workstation? Is it an SSD, high-end cooling, a gigabit NIC, TV tuner, or RAID array? 69% of you say SSD. 10% said RAID array. 13% said high-end cooling. That was number 2 on the list, although that's pretty close to the third. 10% said RAID array. 6% said gigabit NIC, and 3% say TV tuner. So a majority of you, a strong majority of you, say that it is SSD. The SSD drive is one that really has just changed how we use computers, hasn't it? It has taken systems that were horribly slow and turned them into blindingly fast systems. SSDs is probably the one upgrade you could make to any system that would have a dramatic and immediate effect. So if you don't have an SSD in your computer, you should consider getting that solid state drive, or SSD. For video editing workstations, you of course need high-end audio, high-end video. That wasn't one of the options available on our list, which means we go to the second most important thing on there, which is the solid state drive, because there's so much I/O, input and output, that goes back and forth to these storage drives. When you're doing video editing, there's a ton of proxy content that's created. There's a lot of temporary files written to the storage drive. Having a fast storage drive can speed along the editing process. And of course, you might want dual monitors. That's one of the best ways to edit. So you can see exactly what you're doing in one monitor, and then you can edit in the other. That wasn't one of the options, though, on the list. The only option that really matched any of those is an SSD. You wouldn't need high-end cooling. The video editing doesn't take so much heat that you would need some type of high-end cooling system. The built-in cooling works just fine. 9% said RAID array. And although it's important to always have a backup and a copy of your information, although, of course, RAID is not backup, but having some type of redundancy is always a good idea. And certainly RAID applies there, but it's not entirely necessary on somebody's workstation, maybe on somebody else's machine. You've got a gigabit NIC if you're doing Ethernet at high speeds. Most of us have a gigabit NIC in our devices these days, but there's not any information going out over the network with our video editing workstation, at least not most of us. So that's not something we'd worry about. It would not be a TV tuner. TV tuner is not the type of video editing that we're doing there. So that's where we would focus on these. The only answer that really made sense was the SSD. And for those of you that were here last month, that was the right answer. If you answered A, you got it absolutely correct. Well, let's shift gears. That was our multiple choice question, kind of start things off from last month. But let's now do some new questions. And one of the questions I have for you to start off is not a multiple choice question. This is very similar to the questions you'll get at the beginning of your exam, because you'll get a handful of questions that CompTIA calls performance-based questions. Those performance-based questions are anything but multiple choice. They could be fill in the blank, they could be matching, they could be drag and drop. You may be having to put things in a particular order. These are the questions you get before you ever get to the multiple choice questions on your exam. So the first new question I have for you today is another one where we're talking about a performance-based question. This is a fill in the blank question. This fill in the blank question asks, name the interface. So for those of you listening in on the podcast, this is not going to be a great question to go through because there are 4 pictures here of 4 interfaces. I have both the cable of the interface and the interface that it is plugging into just above it to help out with your studies there. So I want you to name these interfaces. There is a available spot for you to type these in. You go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer there. Please do not put any answers in the chat room. So we do one of these performance-based questions every month, and they're different every month. Go back the last 12 months, and you'll find a lot of these available for you to work through. These are, I think whenever you start getting into performance-based questions, they really can be anything. And I think some of us may even overthink it a little bit, because most of these performance-based questions are questions that are relatively easy to understand. I think this one is an easy one to understand. But they are different than multiple choice. So I know my head's sort of in the way of that last interface. Let me see if I can change that for you. For those of you that are watching on the screen, that's the interface. How about if I do this? Now, I go away. Look at that. See, now you can see that last interface a little bit better. This is a fill-in-the-blank question. We are not going to be grading these because they are fill-in-the-blank questions for this particular question. So you don't have to worry about the format. You just have to be able to put the answer in there so I can read it. And most of you are doing pretty well with these. That first one I thought would be just an easy giveaway, but we're kind of going back and forth over what that first one might be. The one I've got the yellow mark over, I should move that. We'll put that over here. The second, maybe the third one, third and fourth, I thought maybe would be the most difficult. But I don't think that's the case. I think most of you got the third and fourth really, really well. That first one, though, I think might be a bit challenging. So feel free to step through and answer this one. Lock it in at professormesser.com/QA. These are not exactly to scale. They are effectively to scale. They're close, but they're not exactly to scale to be able to do this. So hopefully that will get you a hint that might help you with some of these. And we'll step through them. You'll be able to understand what we get through with each one of those. You know, did I put the answer? Yeah, I did put the answers in mine. I write these questions up about a week prior. So as we go through this, it is challenging to remember what I put in here and what I didn't. So these are almost new to me as well. So maybe you'll run into that, is that you'll find that that's the answer, is something maybe I forgot. Let's step through both of these and see how we do with these interfaces. We'll start with the first one on our list. We'll name our first interface. And that first interface, if you could see, it's difficult to exactly see, but there are definitely 8 little connectors that are just sort of open there. There's no wires. It's just sort of 8 connectors on this flat, very easy to see interface that's plugging into something that looks like it could be plugged in either way. That would be a lightning connector. Now, a number of you said a Thunderbolt connector. I see what you did there. The names are so close to each other. It's a storm, right? Lightning, Thunderbolt, what's the difference? Actually, there's a significant difference. So this is not a Thunderbolt connection. Thunderbolt connections are very different in how they both look and how they operate. This is a proprietary connector for generally phones and tablets in the iOS world, in the Apple world. So Lightning is actually the correct answer here. Thunderbolt is not the correct answer. And a good chunk of you did say Thunderbolt. Some of you said USB-C, which it is not. It is definitely a Lightning connection. Very good to have there. Second on our list, one that's been around for a little bit longer, but that is a USB connection, specifically a USB Mini B. Did any of you specify Mini B? Many of you did specify that it is a Mini B connection. USB was sort of a giveaway, but it's that older style USB. It's got that funny connection, so you can only plug it in one way. What were we thinking in those early USBs? We had the technology, so we could make it so we could plug it in any direction. But as you know, USB, you have to plug it in 3 times. You try the first time, it doesn't fit. You turn it over, you try it doesn't fit. You turn it back over, plug it in, it fits fine. So that's 3 connection types, 3 connection tries for every USB connector until the most recent. So that's one of those that happened. Third on our list, a video connection, DisplayPort connector. You notice DisplayPort because it's got that slanting off to the side. and have those there. So DisplayPort's actually a little bit bigger. I think the Mini B, it's almost the same size as the Mini B. So there is a little bit of perception problems here I'm having with the depth and sizing of my graphics. I apologize for that. But that is a DisplayPort connector. This is one that does become handy for your higher end video connections. You're probably using that as well. So could happen for you to have that functionality. I think whenever I step through and plugging in, most of the video connections I use it here are Thunderbolt video type connections I have that use the USB-C interface. So USB-C interface actually is the last one on our list. USB-C is a connection type that's so common now, and it's used for so many different things. What's interesting is USB-C is a type of connector. It describes a physical connection, but you can run a lot of different signals over USB-C. As I just mentioned, I run video with the Thunderbolt protocol on my USB-C connections in my studio. So all of the video that I have here, this entire monitor is USB-C connected with Thunderbolt. All of these video systems down here have USB-C type connections for video, although I'm not using them. I'm connecting it via SDI, which is a completely different thing. But very common to also, of course, use USB-C for serial connections. So you could use it to plug in and connect to charge. For example, if you have some of the newer Xbox controllers, USB-C charging. You have some of the newer tablets, newer phones, USB-C is charging. So useful to have a type of interface that's flexible, works very well, supports some very fast speeds for the protocols that run over that. Just a great setup for USB-C. So those are your 4 different interfaces. If you chose Lightning, USB Mini B, DisplayPort, and USB-C, you got that one absolutely right. That was your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully, you did pretty well with that. I have now, let's shift gears back to multiple choice questions. This multiple choice question is one, actually, tell you to pick 2. You may or may not be able to do this online, but we're going to step through it as if we are able to pick 2 because you do get these types of questions on the exam. This question asks, which of the following might be used to provide connectivity to an iOS device? And I'm asking you to pick 2. Well, which of the following might be used to provide connectivity to an iOS device? And I have options for you. The first is USB-C, Thunderbolt, USB Micro B, Lightning, and USB Type-B. So you've got some options here to choose from. I want you to pick 2 of these. I don't know that the online system allows you to pick 2. But if you picked 1, I'm fine with that. And we're going to step through the answer anyway. So you're going to be able to see the answers there. The question again, which of the following might be used to provide connectivity to an iOS device? Pick 2 of these. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Choose 2 between these: USB-C, Thunderbolt, USB Micro B, Lightning, and USB Type-B. Those are the ones you're looking for. Please make sure you do not answer in the chat room. You want to go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Also, no hints in the chat room. We'll figure out all of this. Okay, it does allow you to pick 2 options. That's good. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and pick those 2 options. See if you can lock those in and have the choice of what these happen to be. I think one of the things that I do is I try to step through these questions to figure out which ones I know it could not be. That's a useful tool in any exam situation, is that calculatus eliminatus. Calculatus eliminate. See, there you go. It goes very quick at this age, everyone. USB-C, Thunderbolt, USB Micro B, Lightning, and USB Type-B. I think whenever you start looking at this, if you've never had an iOS device, I think you could still step through this one and figure it out. And I've even given you some hints already today that might help you out. So that might get you there as well. Let's see how we did with this one. Let's show the results. Here we go. We have 48% of you said Lightning. Yeah, but here's what's interesting about this is that we have a tie for second. 24% of you said USB-C and 24% of you said Thunderbolt. So there's 3. Those 3 questions kind of cover the bases because the only ones left, USB Type B, only 2%, USB Micro B, only 1%. So you've got at least some options to choose from there, but definitely not those last 2. So that's not where you would focus your efforts. So let's look at these different connector types. And again, my head's going to be in the way for this one, but I think most of you know what a USB Type A connector looks like anyway. That's that standard flat connector that you commonly see plugging into desktop computers. But you have other connectors as well. On older iOS devices, you don't see very many of these anymore because they haven't been around for a while, are the Apple 30-pin connectors. You've got USB-C, which are seen on some of the newer devices, iOS devices, so that's certainly an option. An Apple 8-pin Lightning connector, we've already seen that one as well, and the USB Micro B. Now for iOS, you've got that proprietary USB, which is either the 30-pin connector or the Lightning connector. You've got USB-C, that's another common wired connection, and then you have 802.11 wireless and mobile connectivity. There's no cables you would deal with there. So you've got a number of options available. And there are iOS devices with USB-C out there that are available. So that means that our choices, the ones that we would have gone with here, is certainly Lightning. I think 48% of you, practically half of us say, yeah, definitely Lightning. Those are ones we see. But the new iPads have USB-C. So you've got USB-C that you would use on those newer devices, 24%. There's lots of rumors right now about will the next phones, the smartphones from Apple, their new iPhones, will those have USB-C? We'll have to see. They're kind of moving to more of a non-connection, aren't they? More of a wireless charging. I wonder if they're going to get rid of the physical connection altogether. It seems it sometimes to be able to do that. So the 2 answers here are A, USB-C, and D, Lightning. Would not be Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt is higher speed connectivity using Thunderbolt type mini DisplayPort connectors or USB-C connectors, and they're not used on iOS devices. Thunderbolt is not an iOS device technology. And of course, USB Micro B and USB Type B are the connectors you would use on larger USB connections and much older types of devices, although Micro B was never used on Apple's iOS devices, or USB Type B for that matter. Those are those large square connectors that you would find on USB devices, commonly on devices like a printer. You see that often on those types of machines. Those are your 2 options. If you chose A, USB-C, and D, Lightning, got those absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another. I know we're doing a lot of Mac here, but this just happens to be how it is. This is from 1.7. I believe, is this under 1.7? Yeah, 1.7. Mobile device synchronization is where this is from. So this is from our mobile device section. Well, our next question is also talking about Mac OS. So you're getting a lot of Mac OS. I think that's the last Mac OS we talk about today, though. Let's see how well you did with this. The question asked, a network administrator is troubleshooting a file transfer between Mac OS devices. Which of the following would be associated with this communication? Would it be TCP 443, TCP 3389, TCP 548, TCP 389, or TCP 445? If you think you know the answer, don't answer in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Figure out what these are. Port numbers are one of those things on the Core 1, the 1001 exam, that are kind of a memorization if you've never seen these before. If you already worked with port numbers before, you probably know most of them because you just sort of remember them as you work through them. Once you've worked on a firewall, once you've configured port numbers on a host-based firewall, a network-based firewall, they just become second nature. But if you've never worked with them before, it's almost a rote memorization you have to do. So this is one of those that you do need to know. If you're looking at a file transfer in a packet analyzer, in a sniffer, in something that's showing you Wireshark protocol decode, those become important to know. Those port numbers can be very, very useful, especially on those protocol decodes. So make sure you're familiar with these. That's why they're listed in the exam objectives. I know a lot of times we go through these exam objectives wondering, when am I ever going to use this? When am I ever going to take advantage of this? Port numbers, you're going to use these. You will definitely run into that. So make sure you're familiar with these as well. This question, I think, is more of a memorization question. You don't get a lot of trivia questions on the exam, but this one is a couple of steps. So you do have to really understand the question and then apply to the question what these happen to be, and figure out what those are working through. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a network administrator is troubleshooting a file transfer between macOS devices. Which of the following would be associated with this communication? Is it TCP 443, TCP 3389, TCP 548, TCP 389, or TCP 445? If we look at our results, we have 47% of you, effectively half of you, have said TCP 548. Answer C. 20% said TCP 443, 17% said TCP 445. And then we've got 9% that said TCP 389, and we've got effectively the same. 8% said TCP 3389. Well, that is a lot of port numbers to break down to be able to figure out. What we have to do first is figure out what is a file transfer between macOS devices. So the first thing you'd have to do is answer that one, and that is the Apple filing protocol. That is what Apple uses to be able to manage the communication to transfer files and print between different devices on a macOS network. If you know that, if you know it's AFP, then immediately after that, you can start breaking down, okay, what port number is used by AFP? Well, it uses TCP 548, which is effectively the answer to what we were looking for. There are other protocols that are used along these lines. For example, SLP, the Service Location Protocol, allows the front end of macOS to populate those pull-down screens that show you all of the other devices on the network. And if you're using AFP, then you're doing file management, you're copying files, you're moving files, you're deleting things, you're changing the file system. That's an important protocol to know, and one you should get directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So TCP 548 is what we were looking for. So those half of you, the 48% of you that chose answer C, TCP 548, you were spot on. You got it exactly correct. These other port numbers are important to know as well, because all of the port numbers on this list come from the CompTIA exam objectives. So as maybe some extra homework, go through each one of these port numbers, the ones that are left, and figure out what runs commonly over that port number. That's what you want to do, is have a look at those. Maybe that will help you as you're stepping through and trying to figure out, why did I get this right or why did I get this wrong? Well, if you know it's AFP, you can find 548, but what is 443? What is 3389? What is 389? Why are those are close? The numbers are close there. Why are they close, if at all? But that might help you also remember what they are. The fact that they just sound close. 3389 and 389 are not really close in what they do. They're close with the numbers. The numbering scheme it rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? And then TCP 445. All of those are real port numbers. Hopefully that will help you too with what you're working through. If you answered C, TCP 548, got that one absolutely right. Let's do another multiple choice question. This one asks, which of the following would allow printing on both sides of a page? I know you love printer questions. So here's your printer question. Which of the following would allow printing on both sides of a page? Is it collation, infrastructure mode, orientation, duplexing, or AirPrint? Which one of those allows printing on both sides of a page? Is it collation, infrastructure mode, orientation, duplexing, or AirPrint? Now, if you think you know the answer, follow that link. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answers. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will figure all of that out to be able to work through those. Maybe you know what this one happens to be. If those of you working through printer questions, these printer questions are very, very useful. You're going to run into printers that are having problems all the time. So knowing as much as you can about printers is really going to help you quite a bit. I know a number of you, as you're mentioning in the chat room, I don't like printer questions. I hate the printer questions. I don't plan on being a printer technician. guess what? You're going to be a printer technician at some point for a certain amount of time. Everybody in IT has to fix a printer at some point. It's a rite of passage. So the more you know about printers, the better off you're going to be. Even take all of that hatred, that white hot heat of a million suns, and use it to learn more about printing. It will help you ultimately. It feels good to be a gangster, but in this case, you should probably fix it instead. That's the important part. The thing that I like is that printers they seem like these are difficult to figure out, but once you spend some time with them, you notice that it's sort of the same process, regardless of what printer you're printing to. There's some very simple things that you could do to really help and understand what's happening with the printers. And every time a problem happens, you can almost recognize what it is and fix it that way as well. So the more familiar you become with printers, boy, the more valuable you're going to be. And when you are more valuable, there's more money coming your way. So these are things that will help level you up through the IT ranks, and something you might want to consider about as well. So let's go through the answers on this one and see how you did. Now the chat, you're right, the chat's going crazy because we all hate printing. So that was I was trying to talk you off the ledge there. I'm not sure how well I did. The question asked, which of the following would allow printing on both sides of a page? The possible answers are collation, infrastructure mode, orientation, duplexing, and AirPrint. Let's see how you did. Let's show the results. 78% of you say duplexing. That's certainly one of the possible answers if everybody seems to be answering it. That's the one you should focus on. You, of course, have single digits everywhere else. Look at this. 9% said AirPrint, 7% said collation, 5% said orientation, only 1% said infrastructure mode. That certainly points us to some of these configuration settings and being able to work through this and the details of it. If we have a look, duplexing is the right answer and working through this. And duplexing is the one that allows you to print on both sides of the page without flipping over the paper, which is the important part of this. Especially in a corporate environment, the printer could be on another floor of a building, but you still need it to print on both sides of the page. You can't print on one side, run up to the printer, manually flip the page over, go back to your desk and print the other side. Be much more effective if you could just send it to the printer, have the printer inside the internals of the printer, flip over the page and push it through. So that's another one that becomes really useful and can save a lot of paper that way as well. Paper is expensive. So that's the way you would do it. Collation is the process of printing the pages in a particular order. So if you were to print 10 copies of something, or as I say here, 4 copies of something, we have page 1111, 2222, 3333, and 4444. And at the end now you have to take all the pages and you have to deal them out so that everything is in the right order. Or you can click the button to collate the pages so that when you print, it will print out page 1, 2, 3, and 4, then page 1, 2, 3, and 4, then page 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then page 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can pick them up off the printer and you don't have to now restructure the entire printout. It's all ready to go. You can simply do what you want to do. So it becomes useful to have that there. Might be useful for you too. The other options that were available to you, infrastructure mode is a type of configuration for a wireless network, has nothing to do with printing. So that was definitely the thing that should be thrown out first, is that answer for infrastructure mode. Orientation determines whether you're going to print, I don't have a sheet of paper here, whether you're going to print landscape, which this book is not, or portrait mode, which this book is. So everything written in this book is in portrait mode. If we were printing it sideways, where you'd have to read it like this, it would be in landscape mode. But this book, straight up and down, like a portrait. See how that works? It's my portrait. That's why we call it portrait mode. Landscape mode, how we normally would take a picture of the landscape. So very useful to have that there. And AirPrint is what you would do from your iOS device. If you wanted to print to a printer that supported the AirPrint technology, you'd be able to do that from your mobile device. But in this particular case, that's not what we were looking for. We were looking to print on both sides of the page. If you like it, you can print on both sides of the page. And that's answer D, duplexing. It's the one you got. That one, I think, was a pretty good one to go through. Duplexing was the correct answer. How about another multiple choice-based question? Should I be doing an ad at this point? I probably should, but we're going to do another question anyway. Next question asks, a company pays a flat fee for their cloud-based storage system. Which of the following would best describe this arrangement? Would that be rapid elasticity? Would it be resource pooling? Would it be on demand? Would it be internal cloud? Or would it be non-metered? If you think you know that answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You can lock in that answer. Hit my mic there, so sorry. A company pays a flat fee for their cloud-based storage system. Which of the following would best describe this arrangement? Is it rapid elasticity? Is it resource pooling? Is it on demand? Is it internal cloud? Or is it non-metered? Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. These cloud questions, everybody hates the printers. Why do you not hate the cloud questions so much? The cloud questions are relatively straightforward, aren't they? Most of the cloud questions, at least, are something that we are familiar with in some way. At least the technology, the idea of it, we're more familiar with. Printers, we can see the outside of the printer. The inside of the printer, we aren't sure how that works in there. It's just a mystery. The cloud questions may be second on our list to be able to work through these. And this is certainly one you have to consider when purchasing or subscribing to a cloud-based system. This is something you do need to know about and be able to work through. So have a look at this one. We use so many cloud-based services. Since you're on answering this question right now, you're going to professormesser.com/QA. You're answering it in the cloud. Later on, when you call in the phone lines, that's all cloud-based. So a lot of what we're doing here is, of course, going to have kind of a link back to reality all of my topics link back to reality. There's a lot of concepts in the exam that perhaps don't seem obvious at first, and then you realize, oh, that's how they use that in a data center. And I think that's one of the things that I guess I can help bring to the table, having worked in IT for so long, having been in so many data centers, I think I've probably been in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data centers. So I can kind of give you a perspective on what people are doing and working through that. So hopefully you'll figure out those details too. So let's now focus on this question, and this would be the question that asks, a company pays a flat fee for their cloud-based storage system. Which of the following would best describe this arrangement? Would it be rapid elasticity, resource pooling, on demand, internal cloud, and non-metered? Those are all of our possible answers. We have a look. Let's see how you did with this. The results show 64% of you say that's non-metered. We have 15% that said internal cloud and 13% that said on demand. That's effectively a tie for second. And we have effectively a tie for third. We have 5% that said resource pooling and 4% that said rapid elasticity. So 64% said non-metered. Is that really what we were looking for? Well, one of the nice things about a metered cloud service is you just pay for what you use. You upload a file, you pay a little bit to upload it. Someone downloads the file, they pay a little bit to download it. It stays there for a month in their storage, they charge you a little bit to keep it in their storage. Well, this helps because if you're rolling out a new service and you're not using a lot of the service, it doesn't cost you a lot. And as you start using more and more of the service and hopefully making money from that service, you can begin to pay for more of it. It becomes useful to have that there. But what if you didn't want to have this variable rate? What if you could lock in a price and it was always that price every month? Well, that would be not metered. You're not metering that piece of it. You just sort of pay a flat fee, and then you don't have to pay for uploads. You don't have to pay for downloads. You don't have to pay to keep a certain amount of storage there. It is a flat fee. So if you pay $9.99 a month, that's what you use. So if you're using, Google Drive, I think is a good example of that. Google Drive is a non-metered service, and you pay a flat fee, and they give you a certain size block, and you can upload and download and synchronize from that all month long, and it still costs you that flat fee. There's no extra cost associated with that. A metered cloud service is very similar to what I pay on my ProfessorMesser.com website. So I have a cloud-based web server. I have multiple cloud-based web servers, thankfully. And those servers are behind load balancers. These are all cloud-based systems. If they sit idle and nobody hits my website, I pay a certain amount of money just by having those systems running. And then as more people access the site, it costs me more in bandwidth for you to be able to send and receive information to those servers. That would be a metered cloud service. So the type of service you would choose would probably depend on what you were doing with your systems. But I think that's a pretty good comparison, really a real world comparison of some of the things you might find when working through your systems, being able to have access to either a metered cloud-based system or a non-metered system. I was looking here on my display. I wanted to show you my practice exams, because somebody mentioned this in the chat room, because all of these questions that we're going through here are questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. But the questions are not trivial questions. They're not asking you, what's the port number of AFP? There's always a story behind it and working through the questions. So one of the things I did is I wrote a book that is 3 practice exams. These are my Professor Master Practice Exam book. I have one. That's the one right here on the practice exams. So I want to step you through one of the questions and give you a feel for this since we're doing these questions today. This one asks, a computer has been configured with an SSD, a high-end video adapter, and the maximum amount of RAM. Which of the following would be the most likely use for this computer? Would it be a thin client, a network-attached storage device, a CAD/CAM workstation, or a VDI client? Now, you may be able to guess this one pretty well because we've done so much with this particular topic today. One of the things I do in my PDF reader is I can mark it. So if I think the answer is CAD/CAM workstation, I can mark it so that later on I might want to go back and see if that's the one I chose. I also have links in these practice exam PDFs, so you can click the details and it's going to jump ahead to page 41 where the question is there again that says the computer's been configured with SSD, high-end video, blah, blah, blah. And if you remember, I chose CAD/CAM workstation on that earlier one. And indeed, the answer is C, CAD/CAM workstation. And I give you the answer, a description of why the answer is C, CAD/CAM workstation. So the CAD/CAM workstation is definitely the right answer, and I explain why it's the right answer. Now, what I do in my books, though, is I don't stop there. I go through each of the incorrect answers, and I explain why each of those was the wrong answer, because I always get it wrong. I get the answer wrong, and then I don't know why I got the answer wrong. In my books, every single answer, whether it's right or it's wrong, has a description next to it. So you can find, oh, if you chose thin client, you're wondering, why is that the wrong answer? Well, thin client's a computer with the minimum hardware resources required to perform a remote desktop or remote control function. The applications used on the thin client are run on a remote server, so the local device does not require any high-end components. That's why that's the wrong answer. And that's why I mentioned earlier, you may want to step through the exam. Whether you get the question right or wrong, read all of those different answers so that you get an idea of why you would have chosen that. You can find out more about these practice exams on my website. Oh, also, I put a link to the video so you can use your phone, either click on the link and visit that page, or you can put your phone up if you got the book version of this, because there is a physical edition of the book. There it is. This is the Core 2, but it looks exactly the same. It's a thick book. So if you have the physical book, you can use your phone, point your phone at it, and it will take you to the video that talks about the topic discussed in the question. For every single question, there are 3 full exams in the book. Each one of the exams is 90 questions long. Each exam has 5 performance-based questions and 85 multiple-choice-based questions, all of them with all of those answers and all of those recommendations. Find links on my website to the practice exams. You can find it at professormesser.com. Use those links in the pull-down menus at the top, and you can choose the practice exams. That may be something you want to consider for your studies as well. And, of course, it does help support what we're doing here at Messer Studios. We've got time for more questions, so let's do another one. Next on our list is a question that asks, a troubleshooting question, that says, when starting, a system beeps 3 times and the screen remains blank. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be a memory module needs to be reseated? Would it be that Windows needs to be patched? Would it be that the hard drive has failed? Would it be a device driver is corrupted? Or would it be that the network is disconnected? When starting, a system beeps 3 times and the screen remains blank. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be that a memory module needs to be reseated? Windows needs to be patched? The hard drive has failed? A device driver is corrupted? Or the network is disconnected? That is the one we want to break through. If we think we know what the answer is, do not answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if that can help you understand. This is definitely one of those A+ troubleshooting problems. You will run into this problem eventually in your travels, in your job, in the things that you do. Even if you don't fix computers for a living, you will eventually run into this problem. So this is a good one to troubleshoot. This is a good one to go through. This also, in the chat room, had somebody ask, how long can you spend on each question when you're answering the exam? Well, there's no specific timer other than the 90-minute timer you have to finish the exam. You have a maximum of 90 questions. You have 90 minutes. If you do the math, you get about a minute per question. Some of them you'll need more time per question. Some of them you may need less time per question. But on average, you got about a minute. So you need to go quick to get through all of those. But you could spend all 90 minutes on this question if you wanted. I don't recommend that to have all of that. So make sure you're familiar with the way this exam works out. In fact, if you get a voucher from the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/vouchers and you get my exam hacks ebook, I have some tips like that in there for you, figuring out that. Yes, there are computers that every computer is going to beep at you. It does have a hardware on the motherboard, and it may just be a very small speaker on the motherboard that will beep at you. So you will absolutely run into that as you go through these. Hopefully that'll work with you too. A lot of the motherboards now even give you more information. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's see how you did with this one. When starting, a system beeps 3 times, the screen remains blank. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Is it a memory module needs to be reseated? Is it Windows needs to be patched? Is it a hard drive has failed? Is it a device driver is corrupted, or the network is disconnected? 63% of you say that a memory module needs to be reseated. 33% of you say the hard drive has failed. So practically two answers kind of cover almost 100% of the responses on this. 3% say that a device driver is corrupted. 1% said the network is disconnected, and 0% say that Windows needs to be patched. So here's the situation we're in. We're starting up this machine, and it's beeping at us. What in the world is going on? Well, when you're starting a machine, the first thing that it does is called a post. It's a power on self-test. That power on self-test is going to check the minimum hardware that you need to get a system running. So you need a CPU. That would at least get it running. You need some memory. That would get it running. You probably need some boot device that's in there to boot from. That's an important piece of it. The motherboard's got to be operating. Maybe you also have to make sure your video card is operating. And if you have all of those things in place, the system will start up. But what if you don't have a video card that's working? What if nobody installed any memory into the computer? What if there is no CPU? You don't have a way to display a message on the screen because there's not enough smarts in the computer to be able to put anything on the screen. So you need some way to get feedback from the computer to tell us, I'm having a problem, something catastrophic has occurred, I can't even start up, I can't even show you anything on the screen, so I'm going to beep at you. Beep, beep, beep. That is built into the BIOS. Different manufacturers' BIOS have a different set of beep codes. So part of the exam is not memorizing beep codes, but it's understanding why is this computer beeping at me instead of showing me information on the screen. So we already know that there are only certain things that could possibly cause this non-video beeping problem. And generally they focus on bad video, obviously, bad random access memory, bad memory modules, or a bad CPU or missing CPU. This could also be a BIOS configuration issue, but most likely the BIOS configuration issue is not going to be one that does not allow video to be displayed, although that can happen. So those are the things that you want to focus on. If it starts beeping, a blank screen, and starts beeping at you, are those specific pieces of hardware. So if we look at the possible answers we were looking at, 63% of you, a memory module needs to be reseated. Well, it certainly fits that list of things that could go wrong during the power on self-test or the post. So A is a very strong contender at this point. 32% of you say the hard drive has failed. And that is certainly a problem. You don't want your hard drive failing. But a hard drive failing would not cause the video to be unavailable. It would, in fact, tell you on the screen, the hard drive has failed. It would say, can't boot from drive 0, can't boot from drive C, can't boot from the boot sector, can't find a bootable drive. You'll get a message on the screen that tells you the hard drive has failed. You won't get a blank screen and a bunch of beeps. So hard drive has failed would not seem to indicate this particular set of symptoms. 3% said a device driver is corrupted. Device drivers don't get loaded until the operating system starts. By then, we would see information on our screen. We'd see the BIOS page go by. We'd see a splash screen for the motherboard or something. So device driver corrupted has nothing to do with the screen remaining blank and beeping when you start it up. We also have 1% say the network is disconnected. You'll just not be able to connect to anything. The system will start completely normally, even if the network is disconnected. It's not going to keep the screen blank. It's not going to beep at you if your network happens to be disconnected. And lastly, Windows needs to be patched. Again, Windows doesn't start until after the power on self-test is complete, so that's not the issue either. So if you are working through this and you're trying to figure out where do you go with a problem like this, in this particular example, intentionally, there is only one answer that really does fit these particular set of symptoms. It wouldn't even really be the most likely reason for this issue. It would be the reason for this issue. Is answer A memory module needs to be reseated. 64% of you chose that one. That is the right answer. That's what you would want to do if you were in the process of going through and troubleshooting this particular problem. Hopefully that's one that you will run into if you haven't already. And if you have, you probably, one of the reasons you got this one right. And 64% of you were spot on with that one. I know we're at the top of the hour. And before we go to this final question, because I will do one more question before we're done, I would like to remind you that you can earn continuing education unit credit for watching this first hour of the study group. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then this next part doesn't apply to you. For those of you collecting CEUs, you can go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. In that form, put in that you are, put your name, your email address, put in that you are watching the April 2021 A+ study group, and in a line by itself on the first line of the body of the message, put the super secret code word POST, P-O-S-T. The super secret code word of the month is POST, P-O-S-T. You can also put anything else you would like to in the rest of that message. So if you have anything you'd like to say to me, I'm the one going through all of these, so you're welcome to put anything you'd like. I do read through all of them, although I'm not able to respond back to all of them. That process, again, go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link, put in your name, your email address, put in the subject line, something that at least describes that this is the April 2021 A+ study group, maybe Core 1 study group. I'll see the correlation there, so it doesn't have to be perfect. The thing that does need to be perfect is the super secret code word of the month, which is, what did I say it was? POST. It was POST. POST is what we're putting in there. This is what I chose, right? So if it's not, I'll take whatever it is I said earlier, and I'll take POST for all of that. Where I don't know what I'm doing, but here we are. We're in the middle of it. You're with me now. You can't leave. So that's the process you'll go through. Thanks for sending those in. It takes me about a week to process those. I'll send you back an email that has been digitally signed that tells you the information about how you can receive or at least use that particular CEU and be able to have those there. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's do one more question. I see the questions you have coming through for the after show. So maybe that's something we go through and answer those questions too. It was POST. See, I got it right. Then this next question, here we go. This next question asks, a laptop storage system contains no moving parts. Which of the following would best describe this system? A laptop storage system contains no moving parts. Which the following would best describe the system? Is it VRAM? Is it HD? Is it SSHD? Is it ROM? Is it SSD? Sounds like I'm just saying a bunch of letters. Let's do it again. A laptop storage system contains no moving parts. Which of the following would best describe this system? Is it VRAM? Is it HD? Is it SSHD? Is it ROM? Is it SSD? So, there's a lot to unpack there. Hopefully you've unpacked that one. If you think you know the answer, please know answers in the chat room. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer there. I think you might know this one. This would be a good one to end on, I think. Certainly understanding the possible storage systems are going to be important for your exam. They are certainly on the exam objectives. So let's see how you did with this particular one. This one, I think, is kind of a mix of different things. It could be anything, but I specifically put answers in here that might lead you to the right one. So hopefully this might help you out and going through all of this. Maybe you do know this. We'll find out in a moment, though. Answer at ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer to have all of that there. I think that might help you as well in being able to work through these. Let's see how you did with this one, since a number of you have already answered this one so quickly. We have 87% of you said the answer is SSD. We have 6% that said VRAM, 4% said ROM, 3% SSHD, and 0% said HD. So this is one where huge majority, the vast majority, say SSD is what you would use. And if you're working on a laptop, you've got different options available. Here's just a couple of the types of things that you might have. This is not the video that has the M.2 drive on it, but here's two possible answers here. SSD stands for solid state drive. As the name implies, no moving parts. So if we were looking for a storage system that did not move, it would be SSD. In fact, that's what 87% of you chose was SSD. It comes in many different form factors, many different interface types. You'll find NVMe on M.2 connectors. There's lots of different options here. But there's also other types of drives you might find. For a while there, hybrid drives were getting popular. SSHD, solid state hybrid drives, where it's a little bit solid state and it's a little bit of a traditional drive. And the solid state part generally is one that was used for caching, but it doesn't have to be used that way. It might be used to front end the storage of the system. They all worked a little bit different, but it has a spinning drive on it, so it would not be the answer to our question. And of course, traditional hard drives, magnetic disks are spinning. The spinning drive platters, those are definitely moving, so would not be the answer we were looking at either. So that means HD not the right answer, SSHD not the right answer. SSD was our right answer. If you answered ESSD, 87% got that right. Now, VRAM is video RAM. It's RAM that would be on a GPU, graphics processing unit, a video card, effectively. VRAM is not a laptop storage system, though. It's used almost exclusively for video purposes, although we have ways to use that memory and CPU on the video card for other purposes as well, which is why I can't get an Xbox right now. 6% of you chose that would not be the right answer. That's your video RAM, not a storage device, not used for storage on a laptop. And ROM, read-only memory, although it has no moving parts, it is not a laptop storage system. So I would not qualify that as a storage system. It does store information. It is something where we would store information on a laptop. In fact, we don't see a lot of ROMs on our laptops either. We used to use them a lot for our BIOS settings, but now BIOS is in a flash memory. It's not even in read-only memory. We can update the BIOS of our system so it can't be read-only memory. So the only option here that really fits the scenario of a laptop storage system and containing no moving parts is indeed the answer E, SSD, and 87% of you got that one absolutely right. All the questions we go through come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. If you want to get your hands on these, they are so valuable and they're free. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/objectives and you can download these objectives. There's a link that will take you over there to the CompTIA website. They're free. to download and use. So why would you not have these lists everything you need to know for the exam? So it's a great checklist to use before you start your studies and a great checklist to use before you go into the exam to make sure you've covered every possible topic. Find those at professormesser.com/objectives. I do one of these study groups every month. We have another one on Thursday. This is Tuesday. So 2 days from now, we have another one for the Core 2 exam. It's already been written and ready to go. That's April the 8th. Come on back on Thursday for that one. And April 14th is the Network Plus study group. April 21st is the Security Plus study group. Next month, my next A Plus study groups are on May the 4th and May the 5th. Hey, May the 4th. That's a national holiday, isn't it? On May the 4th. And it's not just because I'm doing a study group for the Core 1 on May the 4th of next month. Come on back then. And of course, always check in with the calendar on the Professor Messer website. Sometimes these dates change. So go to professormesser.com/calendar and you can, of course, find out if any of those are changing. There's the May dates, practically the same. 4th, the 6th, the 12th, and the 19th for the May study groups and having those there. Well, the first hour is over, but stick around. We got an after show where you can ask me questions for some reason about these topics that come to mind. Feel free to stick around. I'll take questions from the chat room. I'll open up the phone lines, and who knows? Sometimes it goes a little south. We'll have to find out how things go this month. Don't forget about my course notes and practice exams. You'll find them at professormesser.com/1001success, or just follow the links at the top of the page. Don't forget about the new exam vouchers with the exclusive free exam hacks ebook. Always there. You got to get a voucher anyway. Why wouldn't you get the voucher from professormesser.com? Go to professormesser.com/vouchers, and I'll make sure you get your hands on that discounted voucher. Don't forget about our daily pop quiz questions on Twitter and Instagram. Go to professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Instagram, or of course, follow us on Twitter. Subscribe, click links. There's a bell. You know what to do. professormesser.com/YouTube. Stick around for the after show. Thank you for being here for this hour of Q&A. We always love it. We will see you next time on the Core 1 study group. Let's see if I can get things going here. We don't need that lower third. We need a different lower third. If you will bear with me just a moment, I'm now going to reconfigure the world around me for the after show. This takes me a moment because nobody's here but me. But I do have an after show to host, so I'm going to click some buttons on my screen, get my cloud-based call-in system going, and then I'll give you information on how you can call in and participate as well. So bear with me as I click around my screen. I bring up the details of the Skype that I have here because I have to call into my own show. See how that works? At least I'm the one that gets to moderate what's there.
Thank you for.
Well, you're welcome. And then I'm going to type in some codes on my screen, and the nice lady says,
enter your 6-digit PIN.
All right, I will do that. And after typing that in, the nice lady says,
welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. That means that you can now participate as well. Not with that button. You're not going to. There. It's this button. There's your phone number. In the continental U.S., you would call in a 855-785-RJ45. That's 855-785-7545. It's a toll-free number. You can call in and go through, wait in the queue for there. I am taking questions, though, from the chat room as well. So feel free to put any questions you would like in that chat room. I would be glad to answer those. And I think it's one of those where we just have a sort of an open phone line. You can ask questions about CompTIA. You can ask questions about technology. You can ask questions about something you've seen in the news that I probably have not, which means it's a very short conversation. But that at least gets you to where you would like to go. Questions from the chat room. There are a number of different ones. Do I have a study group for the PMP exam? Someone doing some project management. No, I do not. And project management, probably not on the top of my list. I've done plenty of project management, probably not an exam that is one asked about quite enough to be able to do that. How many pages is my exam hacks ebook? I think I've got 14 hacks in there. It's sort of a mini book. It's one that has 14 different life hacks. These are exam hacks in this way because they're focusing on the exam. So there's about 14 different tips, hints that cover before you take your exam, while you're taking your exam, and after the exam if you need that, because sometimes you actually do need some things after the exam. So that's one of those that you should probably be familiar with, working through all of those. What is W or MWN? It's actually probably WMN is probably what you meant. It is in the exam objectives. Go have a look. That's an important one to know about, especially these days. So be able to break through there. A question from the chat room, then we'll go to these callers. Thank you, callers, for calling in. Please hold there. We'll get to you in just a moment. Would an IT degree be recommended if you wanted to branch out into security, or would you be able to climb the ladder with certifications? So maybe not getting a formal degree. This is one of those situations where it really does depend. And there are a number of elements that are necessary to get a job in IT. You do not need all of those elements to be able to get a job in IT, but it helps if you have a little bit of everything. And I have 4 elements that I detail on my YouTube channel, the video, How to Get a Job in IT with No Experience. So I have an entire video, 30 minutes long, that describes in detail these 4 different elements. The first element is a formal degree. Employers are still looking for formal degrees. It doesn't have to be a doctorate in computer science. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a formal degree of some kind. My formal degree, I think somebody was asking this earlier in the chat room, was business management. There was nothing in my 4-year degree that talked about technology at all. It was just an interest that I had. Mine, it was purely business management. So that's one of those to be able to break through is figuring out what formal degree do I need to get. Now, probably something that's at least professional or has some scope in business might help, but not incredibly necessary. The second one is industry certifications. The third on the list was some type of practical experience. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a job, but some type of experience. I give you some hints in that video on how you can do that. And the fourth on the list is you know somebody who works there. Fourth one we sometimes forget about, but knowing somebody at the place that you're trying to work can really help you during the process of hiring. The people would like to hire someone they know, or at least somebody they know that they know. So if there's somebody you know already works there, you have a professional knowledge, you know them personally, there's some connection. Make sure you use that connection because they know you. They know you're a good person. They know that you're going to come to work. You're going to work hard. You're going to be a good employee. So someone can effectively vouch for you. Now, if this is somebody who doesn't like you, perhaps don't bring that up because they'll say, oh, don't hire that guy. Now, that's an awful idea. Don't do that. So that's your fourth one. So a formal education, industry certifications, practical experience, you know somebody who works there. Those are the 4 elements if you're trying to get a job in IT with no experience. And again, that video is on my website. Lori's watching this on the replay. Lori, make sure you put that in the exam link. There should be a link on YouTube in the YouTube video description. I might have even put it there already. I don't remember, but Lori will absolutely have it there in the next day. So you have a link directly to that video. Let's go to our callers that have been holding so patiently. Let's go to the 252 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Nick Corey. I'm from North Carolina. How are you doing today?
Thanks for calling in. Doing great. What's your question?
So, I'm currently working in help desk, and I'm working on trying to get my A+, and then after that, I want to work on Network Plus and Security Plus and so on and so forth. My question to you is, getting all of these certifications, will that secure me to have a job that will pay me well in the future? Is what I'm at.
Well, this is one where it sort of depends. Someone asked this of me today, saying that they were interested in getting into a position that was a network administration position. And they said, should I get my A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus? Should I just get Network Plus? Should I go get a CCNA? Should I don't get any of those? Should I just get Security Plus if I want to go into networking? You know, they just really weren't quite sure what direction to go with this. And the answer, probably not a great answer, probably not the one people want to hear, but the answer is that I don't get to make that decision, and you don't get to make that decision. The employers get to make that decision. And so one of the things I recommended for this person, it might be a great idea for you as well, is to go to the job postings in your area. Go to dice.com, go to LinkedIn Jobs, go to whatever your favorite job site is, and start collecting a list of all of the different jobs that are being marketed in your area for the type of job you're looking for. So this might be a help desk position. If it's in networking, whatever it is, find that job and then document it. Put in a spreadsheet. Have a spreadsheet that documents. I described this in my video, how to get a job in IT with no experience, by the way. Put a spreadsheet. What type of formal education are they looking for? What type of industry certifications are they looking for? What type of specializations are they looking for? Because maybe they don't require you to have a certification in a particular set of technologies, but they'd like you to have some knowledge of it. Maybe they'd like you to be knowledgeable in Microsoft Office, Office 365. They'd like you to be knowledgeable in a cloud-based system. They'd like you to be, maybe not certified in it, but they'll list that in the job description. So make a list of all of those, find every job in your area that has that particular set of criteria, write down what they're looking for, and you should start to see certain certifications showing up over and over and over again. So if you happen to see that they all say A+, we got to have it. If you're going to be their help desk, you got to have an A+ certification. And that 5 out of 7 jobs are wanting A+, well, now you know which certification you need to go get. If you're trying to get into a job in networking and none of the job postings say Network Plus and they all say CCNA, well, in your area, they want you to get that Cisco Certified Network Administrator. That's the one you should go after. So there are some obvious sort of paths that you can take, and CompTIA does have a set of certification pathways on their site that you can look at, but it is going to ultimately be the discretion of the employer to determine which one should we ask for, which one should people have. And I think that doing the research in your area is going to be different, because trust me, if you're in the DC area, the answer to that question is going to be very different than if you're in LA. It's just a completely different mindset, a completely different set of possible people to hire, because your hiring pool as a manager, you only have a certain group of people you're able to hire from, and you don't want to start asking for requirements that perhaps are not going to be filled by the local group of folks that you want to hire. So it's a trade-off. Some of the things I mentioned in my video is you're able to take that, even if they aren't asking for the A+, there may be opportunities to talk about why it was important for you to get it. So even if they don't ask for it, it still might help you in the hiring process. So maybe that can help you with what you're doing. See if that might give you some ideas of where you can focus on, and that might help you as you go through your hiring steps too. It's not something you can choose to do and then tomorrow you've done it. This is a long set of strategies you have to spell out. This is a long set of objectives you have to work through. This is an important thing. Getting a job is an important thing. You should put some time into this. You should start customizing your resumes. You should start making sure you have cover letters that are customized for this job. You should learn about those companies. You should find someone who works there. All of those things are important. And so this is something where it's you're really planning this out. There should be a lot of work involved in getting that job, and you're competing with everybody to get this job. So those are my recommendations as well as you're going through this. That might help you with your job hunt. Before we go back to the phones, another question in the chat room. What's a good website for practicing performance-based questions? As you saw today, the first new question of every month's study group is a performance-based question, and every month is a different question with different style, different topics. So please go back over the last year of replays, and you'll be able to find a performance-based question that's different every month. That might help you as well with this. And of course, I have performance-based questions in my practice exams book. This is my 1002, but my 1001 practice exams book also has performance-based questions in it. That could help you as well. Let's go back to the phones. The 213 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm Professor Messer. This is Dwayne from Los Angeles.
Hey, Dwayne from LA. What can we do for you?
So I have a question that's kind of similar to what was just asked. I spent about 15 years working on a help desk in various roles, and then switched roles to a web-related job, which lasted 3 years. So for the past 3 years, I've been unemployed, and I'm currently in the process of studying for my A+ and my Network Plus certifications. And so my question is, when it comes to interviewing, how would I handle, the question of, why have you been unemployed for the past 3 years? And will getting those certifications, make up for, my having been unemployed?
Well, this is one that I think some of those ideas I gave earlier about sort of setting up and having those 4 elements of a job posting. And my video is specifically about getting a job with no experience, but some of these elements also apply if you have experience. And being able to talk to these gaps is an important one, because they're certainly going to come up. If they see a gap of any time on this resume, any good interviewer is going to say, well, there was a gap here. What happened there? Well, I was working in IT and then these things happen. If it's something that happened that took you out of the job industry or took you out of the industry for a while, you can talk about what job you were in. If it took you out of having a job, then you may just say, well, I didn't work for that time frame. It's difficult to find a work in this particular area. So we're looking along these particular lines. Or maybe you're working in a different type of technology. You mentioned moving from help desk to web. That's a very different set of technologies. So it's useful to be honest with whoever's asking these questions, and for you not to be evasive with these. Whenever you're across the desk or across the Zoom call with someone, they can see what you're doing, and you don't want to be uncomfortable. You need to have an answer for these things. And you can talk about, oh, I went off and did this for a year. I went off and did these things for a number of months. I started my own business. I went off to hike the Appalachian Trail. But just tell them what you did and be honest about it. Yeah. But you can also say, here's the things that I've been doing in the meantime, even though I've not been working for someone else. I set up a lab in my home. I'm running pfSense firewall, or I set up Active Directory with Windows. I've got an entire company running in my lab at home. I'm adding users. I'm removing users. I'm putting machines onto the network. I'm changing what's in the Active Directory configuration, or whatever it happens to be. You obviously are going to build a lab and create these stories around the type of job you're looking for. So if you're going into security, you would set up pfSense. If you're looking to get Windows administration, you would set up a Windows server. If you're going to do something with Linux, you would set up some Linux machines and get all of these things running. That, I think, is probably going to be the way that you rebound off of that question, which they're really asking you, you haven't been working for a while. Is that because you're not someone people can hire? That's what they're asking, of course. But now you get to spin around and say, oh no, not only am I hireable, look at these things I've done and look at these stories I have from going through and creating and setting up all of these technologies. All those things I just mentioned, by the way, are things you can download right now. You can install into a VM on your own machine, and you can start running those technologies today. What's important about this, and I mentioned this in my video, is as you are setting up Linux or Windows or pfSense or Snort, or you're running an Nmap scan or whatever you're doing, something is going to break. And when it breaks, you need to make sure you document this. You need to make sure that you're either writing this down, that you're taking a video of it on the screen and annotating that video, even if it's a video you're just doing on your phone. You pick up your phone, you start recording it, and you've now got something that you can go back on, and now you have a story to talk about in the interview, which I think is so important because they're going to want you to talk. During an interview, you're the one who should be talking. So you should already have some stories available. Oh, let me tell you this thing that happened when I was setting up Microsoft Windows. It took me forever to figure out. It turns out it was something simple. Wait till you hear the story. And then you go through the whole story about how you set up DNS wrong, and you set it up based on this, but then finally you got DNS set properly, and now you're able to set up a machine, locate this. You can talk about how you went down to the command line, you did an NS lookup, you put in the commands to find the Active Directory server using NS lookup, you realized that DNS was wrong, you made one single change, and suddenly the whole network was working. That's an interesting story. It can take you 5 minutes to go through the story of what you were doing. You're going into detail. You're explaining the things you learned in the process. You're explaining the troubleshooting process that you went through. You're explaining the technical pieces of what you were doing. And of course, you're explaining to somebody else who's now having to understand this and perhaps even ask you questions about what you were doing. So that whenever I talk to people who are in that situation where you have to impress in these interviews, you have to once you get in front of somebody, you're almost there. You just have to get a little bit further down the road. Make sure you're the one in control. Make sure you're the one with the stories. Make sure that you're talking so much time that you run out of time in the interview. Like it just went way too long. There's no dead air. You were able to at least have some interesting conversations back and forth. Make sure you also have a good question for them at the end. There's that last question they always ask. You have any questions for me? And make sure you have something good there about the company. And maybe it's something you saw about the company. Maybe it's something you read about the company. Maybe it's something about the technology that they're using that interests you. But it should not be something selfish. It should not be something me. It should not be asking about benefits. It should not be asking about pay. It should be something about the company and what they're doing. What do you think? What do you, in your opinion, what's the best part about working here? That's a great question. Oh, you want to ask them? Get it? That's a high note. That's a happy thing to talk about. Well, you've been working here for 5 years. What do you think is the best part about working in this job? That's one of the best last questions you can have. Very useful to have. So that I think would help you regardless of what your background is, regardless of what your resume says, whatever gaps you have. Take control of that situation. Have something to talk about and explain that time was not wasted time at all.
Got it.
Hopefully they'll get you where you need to go,
Thank
Dwayne.
you.
Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate the call. That's something that might always help. In the chat room, Rock Band 144 with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. Showing a little bit of love there. I appreciate that. And I'll take the owing of the cold beer. I appreciate that. You passed your Network Plus exam the first try. Congratulations. That's fantastic. Something we added recently, for those of you not aware of it, is the Super Chat. So not only can you purchase products from my website, some people have said through the years, I really would just like to donate something. I've never really had a method set up to donate. So we have Super Chat now. So you're able to get something done with that. That may be something to help you. As you are watching this live stream and you would like to give something back to what we're doing. Let's go back to the phone calls and go to the 571 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Cheyenne. I'm from Virginia.
Thanks for calling. What's your question?
So I'm only 16, right? And I'm getting into A+ and all that good stuff. And I was just wondering if it is really useful for me and would it help me and other further certifications help me if I apply to colleges and whatnot?
This is something that does come up from time to time. First, fantastic and good on you for kind of pursuing the formal part of a technical training regimen. When I was 16, I don't know if I was exactly quite so go get them. So that's something that will help you, by the way, in your career. And I think getting an A+ certification at any age, first, I think it's really fun to go through the technology, learn it, and then show that you know it, I think is important. But the thing that I thought was really useful, and the thing you just mentioned, was using the A+ certification towards something that you want to do in college. My local community college will give me college credit if I have an A+ certification, a Network Plus certification, Cisco certifications, and others. There's a list on their website. So if you have a particular school that you're looking into that you're maybe interested in going to. I started in community college. I actually started in a university for my first year. My second year was community college, and then I went back to the university after getting my AA degree. So I took advantage of kind of 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, and we went back and forth with that. But my local school gives me credit if I'm going to school and I have those certifications already in my pocket. Check the school that you're going to. That might be a possibility as well. Will that help with the application process to college? Most certainly. If there's any fairness in the process, there's very few people going into college that already have these certifications. It certainly shows that you're interested in the technology. And if you're, of course, working towards a computer science, an information management degree, or some other type of technical degree at that particular school, they're going to love that you have this already. It shows that you definitely are tuned in to what you want to do. And so now that might move you up in the ranks and give you a better opportunity. Absolutely something worth pursuing. And lastly, although you didn't mention this, you actually learned something by going through the certifications. So you start learning more about the boot process and how to configure Windows when it isn't working. And what you'll find is all of your friends, all of the people that you're going to school with, everybody you meet that's got a computer and it's not working right, and you see a message pop up, you go, oh, I know why that message popped up, and I know how to fix it because I've already been through this troubleshooting process before. So this may be actually very valuable to you, might save somebody a lot of money just because you happen to have already gone through the A+. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, it actually helps a lot. It gives me a new insight on things, and I'm very appreciative to you explaining that to me.
Thanks for calling, and best of luck. I think what you're doing is a great idea. Go get that A+ certification. It will help you the rest of your career, no doubt. So best of luck.
All right. Bye.
That's one of those things, though, I think we almost forget sometimes, is that earning a certification, even if your employer doesn't even know that you earned the certification or care that you earned the certification, you're still able to use the knowledge that you learned during the process. And it will be knowledge you're able to use throughout your entire career for both A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. There's content in there that's so valuable. Stencil Walters in the chat room, another $5 donation. Thank you so much. Recently passed the 501 Security Plus. Congratulations. Hopefully you can start your IT career. I think that's a great plan. And if Security Plus, especially if you're in the Northeast United States, that's going to be very, very valuable to you. It's, of course, valuable everywhere, but especially valuable in that particular area because so many of the employers there really love for you to have your Security Plus certification. Plus, the knowledge there is just so good. You may not be able to jump into a security role your first job, but now you've already got the foundation. You can kind of build on that. Now you can go with the networking piece, and then you can add on to that and do more security. It's a great place to go with this. So thank you so much for the donation. Let's go to the phone lines, 484 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Anthony, and I'm calling from Florida. Let me first say thank you, Professor Messer, for your videos and everything. They've been very helpful.
Thanks, Anthony.
And I just passed the motherboard expansion slot video. My question is, I moved from Oregon, and my background's primarily customer service. I started kind of getting on this path because I video game a lot, and I switched from console to PC, built my PC from scratch, and did BIOS, did a lot of stuff hardware-wise. But where I'm having trouble is, I guess, at the port numbers.
Yep, I get that. What type of problem? Just sort of the memorization of them, or what is it that's driving you crazy?
Exactly. The memorization for the most part, like I've seen questions where it's like, what port protocol would you use in this instance, per se? And I guess I don't have enough knowledge or background in those areas to really just come up with the answer off my head. Everything else I seem to be doing perfectly fine, but I'm struggling in that area.
It's one of those sections of the exam, and there's not a lot of this, but this does get people sort of wrapped around the axle a lot. It's a part of the exam objectives that really is rote memorization. There's just no other way to describe it. For most of us, it is rote memorization and memorizing those particular things. Now, what you'll find, though, is some of these you may know already. So if you're doing any type of encryption on the web, you may have already known that web used port 80 and port 443. And those are two very, very popular port numbers. But if you've never touched the network before, you've never looked at a protocol decode, you've never configured even the personal firewall that's running in your operating system, you've probably never even seen these port numbers. So it may be that for that particular section, and I don't say this often because I don't think it really applies to this exam as well as most people think it does. But I think flashcards are really a great use for this particular set of topics. It turns out there's a small number of port numbers. I have seen people studying from a sheet that must have had 100 port numbers on it. Well, you don't have to do that. There's not 100 port numbers in the exam objectives. Go to the exam objectives. That's the port numbers you should memorize. Those are the ones you should go through. The problem, though, is that you will not get a question that asks what port number is used for HTTP. So if your flashcards say port 80 on one side and HTTP on the other side, that's not going to help you. That is a worthless flashcard. You don't get flashcard questions on the exam, or what I call trivia questions on the exam. You get questions like the one you mentioned. A user is connecting from their browser to a web server over an insecure connection. What port number is in use? That's what they're asking. So that's the type of style they're going to go after, which means now you have to back this up, say, all right, they're on a web browser. It's a non-encrypted connection. That must be HTTP, which means that's port 80. So I had to go through this whole cycle of things in my brain to know that the answer is port 80. We had a similar question like that today where I asked about a file transfer in Mac OS. Okay, now I had to kind of back through that and go, okay, that's the Apple filing system. Therefore, it is these port numbers that are going to be in use. So that's the process you're going to go. Don't spend too much time doing the flashcard memorization and ending it there. You need to know what the port number is, and then need to know how it is used. In fact, if you don't even memorize HTTP in that scenario, and you instead memorize non-encrypted or in the clear browser communication to a web server, okay, that's a much better flashcard to put together. So that's what I would recommend, is that level of detail. It is kind of rote memorization. The other thing you might want to do is go into your local personal firewall, in the Windows firewall or the Windows Defender firewall that's in Windows 10. That Defender firewall has a section where you can create customized rules in the firewall settings, and you can add some that are specific port numbers. So you may even want to go through there and try blocking your browser or blocking incoming traffic or blocking other types of communication to see how that firewall is affected by blocking a particular port number. That may be another way to do it, to go through that process. But I just don't have any quick and easy ways.
That would help.
Any of that, I think, is going to be important. See if that might help. I know it's kind of a pain, especially on the networking side, and there's so many ports. And the crazy part is you might get one question on the exam with port numbers. There's not a huge part of the exam dedicated to port numbers. So that's the one place where I could possibly tell you, and I'm not telling you this, but I could possibly tell you, ignore port numbers completely, spend that time learning something else, because then you might get more information stuck into your brain for the exam. I don't know if that's really a good strategy or not, but it's one where you need to kind of balance that out and figure out, am I spending too much time on this? Should I really be spending time studying something else? And you have to make that decision.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Where are you in Florida now?
I just moved to Kissimmee. We've been here since October. I'm currently dishwashing at the Columbia. It's one of those historical restaurants out here. It's been rough, to say the least. But, got to keep chugging forward.
One of my first jobs was literally working in a blueberry field hoeing. So these are sort of the things that make us stronger, that motivate us. There's nothing more motivating than being in a bad job. So use this time. It's going to give you plenty of time to study. It's going to give you plenty of time to put together a strategy. You're in a good area because there's tons of technology in the Orlando area. There are publishers. There are federal contractors. There are, of course, the large tourist locations in that area. There are tons of different carriers. AT&T is there. Verizon is there. Just tons of different places that have IT jobs available. So that's a good part, is you're in a good geography. Now we just need to add on kind of the certification part of this. Find somebody who works in one of these companies, get to know what they're doing, and go get the job in that place. So best of luck, Anthony.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate the call. That's one that is an important part of this, I think, is knowing where you live and knowing what jobs are in your area. IT is very competitive. There's a lot of people that want an IT job. And a lot of the IT jobs to start with are help desk positions. but find one and get in there. Getting a job and working at a help desk is a great job. You learn a lot about the technologies that you're working with. You're in a nice air-conditioned facility, sometimes at home. And it's one where you're kind of sitting down all day. I can't say it's working. It's not hard work. It's just work to be able to do that. That's one I think that's going to be important. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep going down that road of making those things happen. And I think that'll be an important part of it too. Let's go back to the phones to this caller. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller.
Hello.
Hello, caller.
Hi, I'm calling. I'm actually calling from London, England.
Well, thanks for calling London, England.
Hey, I purchased your course notes and exams, and thank you for that. But you. Unfortunately, I didn't pass my A+ exam last month. But basically, I work as an IT service delivery manager in a company in the UK. And interestingly, a lot of the stuff that we do obviously kind of comes up in parts in the exam. But the problem I had with the exam that I took a couple of weeks ago was that it just, I don't know if I felt ready for it after doing sort of the exams and sort of going through the course notes. But as I was going through, I sort of felt as the exam was going on that like the wordings of the questions was a little bit not how I expected, even though I had already been through some of the questions in the exams, and obviously your questions aren't going to be exactly how they are going to be in the exam. But I just found the way that they worded certain things, like I didn't have the knowledge for it, but like I could tell it was maybe between one or two answers, and it just wasn't really going in right. And obviously I didn't pass in the end. Do you feel like you need to have a certain sort of pass rate in your exams beforehand, going into the exams, kind of know roughly where you are in terms of passing it, or is it just like a case of knowing the knowledge or not?
Well, I give kind of in my practice exams book, you probably saw in the introduction that I set up sort of a grading scale. So of the 90 questions that are in there, I really recommend that you get somewhere in an 80 to 90%, which is 73 to 81 of those questions correct, which is a huge percentage. Yeah. And I'm sort of giving you a little bit more than you probably need to be able to pass. But my scale is pretty high up there. You have to get a lot of the questions right. I do know what you're saying about the way the questions are worded. And I know that you guys created the language, but for some reason we don't speak it quite the same way here. And that's kind of a problem. I tell people often, it's even worse on the Security Plus exam. I tell people often that sometimes I think it's more of a reading comprehension exam than it is a technical exam, or at least you have to know just as much reading comprehension to be able to answer some of these questions. I will say that they've gotten a lot better recently with some of these, but you do occasionally run into these situations where the question doesn't make sense. They're asking a question about a technical problem, except the technology doesn't work the way the question is posing it. So you kind of have to go into this mode that, well, they aren't asking something that's real. So what are they really trying to get at? Which, of course, throws the entire process when you're in the middle of the exam room. Such a problem to go through. And you're right. When you get those questions, what are they asking for? This doesn't even make sense. That's not how that works. It's even worse when you've been in the industry a while and you know it doesn't work that way. And why are they asking the question like that? And none of these answers are anywhere close to what the real world seems to think they are. So it is a challenge. How frustrating when you're in the middle of exam to run into that. But it's sort of the nature of certification exams, and it's not specific to CompTIA. For some reason, the editing of these exam questions can sometimes go a little bit awry. It's not that way for every question. It's just that way for certain questions. And then they throw you. Yeah. And now you wonder, well, was that the thing that made me not pass this exam? Maybe. We don't know because they don't tell you. Yeah. So my recommendation is to really try to study from as many different Q&A materials as you can. Try to find some that were kind of written in the same style, the same voice as the actual exam. I tried to do that in my practice exams so that these are questions I wrote. They are all original questions in my book, but I tried to write them with the same cadence and wording and process that you might see on an exam question that CompTIA will give you. None of my questions in my book are trivia questions. They all have that scenario type problem that you have to solve. A lot of them ask you for the best answer or the most likely answer. Those are things that you'll find on the exam, and they can throw you if you weren't ready for them. The good part you have, though, is that you've already been through it. Now you kind of have an idea of what the exam process is like. You kind of have an idea what the questions are like. I don't have a good answer for you on why some of these questions are just written so badly, but some of them are. It's just something you kind of have to be ready for and either push through or ignore or guess, but don't let them throw you. And it's one of those situations where you get up again, you go back into the exam room, and you take it again until you pass it. And then and only then can you finally relax. But that's what you're going to have to do.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And I just wanted to ask one more quick question.
Sure.
Just because, as I said before, because I'm working sort of IT service delivery at the moment, I'm working a lot more in terms of like, I don't know how you guys have it over there in the States, but like we ITIL and delivering sort of service delivery,
sure,
and managing sort of that side of the IT world rather than the sort of more technical, which probably why I didn't encounter a lot of stuff that I normally do on a day-to-day basis because I'm working in different side of IT. Is the CompTIA process the best way in terms of going down this sort of path, or is it more of a technical path to go down? Because I'm just trying not to go in a route that I don't want to head down in terms of a longer career, because I'm enjoying the sort of the management side of the service delivery, and I don't want to kind of go down the technical path of CompTIA and then find out at the end actually it probably should have gone down a different path, which is more related to delivering the service for clients.
You've kind of got a pretty good grasp on this, because you're right. A+ is really considered to be more of a technical exam. It really focuses on break fix. It focuses on knowing the hardware and the software and the operating systems. It is a techie type of exam. Then the Network Plus and the Security Plus to some degree are very similar. Network Plus is certainly a techie exam. Security Plus is becoming less of that technician's exam and more of a general knowledge exam on security technologies. So there's a migration kind of happening right there with the 601. But as far as the A+ is concerned, you're right. If you're interested in IT management, in IT sales, in IT sort of the broader IT roles, then A+ may not necessarily be the best fit. You may find that employers aren't interested in you having an A+ if you have an IT management role. You mentioned, for example, ITIL. ITIL is a perfect example of a management type certification. People who are in IT management love those types of certs for those types of roles. In fact, many of the organizations here will even have help desk people go take their ITIL exam. ITIL, it's IT Infrastructure Library, for those of you that haven't seen that before. And it is a high-level business process type exam. First, ITIL is a business process, and they have a certification that goes along with that to prove that you understand the business process management side of things. So that one certainly fits. The project management certifications might fit into the things that you're doing, but those are higher level certs, and there's less of an emphasis in IT certification on the management side than there is if you were a technician. But there are certainly certifications there that can help. And eventually, you might take this role and it might migrate into a cloud-based role. It might rotate into a security type of role. And in those cases, there may be higher level certs in those areas that make a lot of sense to go after. But I think you're right. If you're trying to focus on the IT management side, the services delivery, sort of the project management piece of this, A+ probably not the first one to look at. That may be an opportunity to go out to the job posting sites in your area and see what some of these management roles are asking for. They may bring up some certifications that neither of us have seen before, and maybe that takes you down a different road and you can kind of find one that's a better fit.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for that information, Professor. And thanks for your help. Really appreciate it, and all the videos as well. And good luck to everyone for taking the exam.
Thank you for the call. Best of luck as well. That's all good things to think about. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of IT, and I mention this all the time in our study groups, is that it's a world that is completely open to what you would like to do. There are jobs in IT that deal with databases and email and the cloud and security and networks and application delivery and servers and data centers and a help desk, and you could just go on, and voice over IP, and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. Just keep adding on. Find the technology that interests you. Find the thing that you would like to do in this crazy business that we're in, and just go do that, because there are jobs out there that will allow you to do that. That really becomes handy, I think, especially since this changes so fast. Not only does the technology change quickly, as you go through your career, your interests will change. So I started my career as field service. Well, that didn't last long. That burned me out pretty quick. Moved from there into corporate help desk. Moved from there to workstation management. From there to server administration. Went from there to network administration, and finally network management and protocol analysis, and then jumped into security from there. So the path, that's kind of a long, involved path. That was a very quick description of, a 30-year career. But that is what the path I took. The path you take is going to be completely different because your interests are different, the jobs are different, the technology changes differently. It just depends on what you'd like to do. Let's go back to the phones. Thanks for holding for so long. 513 area code. Hi, caller. Which name were you calling from?
Hi, Professor Messer. It's Chris Stubbs. I actually just wanted to call in and say hello and happy Easter. And have there been any updates on doing a Linux Plus the Linux Plus cert on your channel?
This is a popular question. It comes up quite a bit. First, thanks for calling in again, Chris. We appreciate it. The Linux Plus now is, of course, this used to be a certification that was a different organization managed, and then CompTIA licensed Linux Plus from them. But this latest Linux Plus is now completely a CompTIA entity. They've CompTIAized it. So now it's a single exam, and it's their style of exam, and they now have complete control over the topics and what's on the Linux Plus exam. There was a time back in the day, and I mean a long time ago, years and years and years and years and years ago, many years ago, that I had created some Linux Plus videos. And at the time, they were well received, but I don't think the Linux Plus and the people taking Linux Plus were in a place that it was a good fit. There were a lot of reasons why we decided not to continue with that one. In fact, it's the only certification I sort of started down the road and then realized about 10 videos in, oh, this is not going well. And we kind of backed out of it and decided to go a different direction. But I always thought the topics on the Linux Plus really were spot on. It was information that was valuable. If you're on ProfessorMesser.com right now, you're going onto Linux web servers, you're going through a Linux load balancer, you're going through what I believe is a Linux reverse proxy. Linux is everywhere, and any knowledge of Linux is going to help you. So a lot of people are asking about it too. This is not one of those topics that only comes up once a quarter. I get a number of people asking about Linux Plus. However, and there's always that however, we just haven't gotten to a point in our schedule that allows me to work on new content. There is on my calendar a section of my calendar where I finish the existing updates to certifications and I go through and work on some new content. And there's a list of things in that block that I could be doing. Do I do Linux? Do I do Cisco? Do I do Google? Do we do Microsoft? Is it a different certification that we haven't even thought of yet? There's a big list of things there. I have, to be fair, I think I've decided, but I'm always changing my mind. So there's always a chance. But right now, it's something that is at least, end of the year time frame for me even getting to a point where I will have additional cycles to work on whatever that next course is going to be. But it's always good to get feedback for anyone watching. If there is a certain technology or certification, or you see more people asking about a certain certification, let me know, because there's nowhere I can go to one single spot on the internet that says the most popular certification right now is this one. It's always this moving set of criteria. So from a business perspective, it's difficult for me to know where to go next. Without your help, I rely on that as an important measurement of where I can at least put some check marks down on a piece of paper. So right now, Chris, I don't have an exact, in fact, I can't even commit to Linux Plus at the moment, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. I'll at least give you that much.
Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Have a
nice day.
You too. One of the things I always struggle with whenever, for some inside baseball, for those of you that care about this, is that it's a constantly moving field of content. And my approach to these certifications is a little bit different than what you will find other places. And you've probably seen this if you've been following my Security Plus videos, is I don't really spit out a lot of videos very quickly. You don't suddenly see 100 videos hit YouTube that I've produced in a couple weekends. There's a different approach we take to certification that focuses more on the quality of the materials, and it focuses on what do you need to know to really pass this exam. And it focuses also on providing you just the right amount of content to get you into the mechanics of whatever we're talking about, learning about it, and then knowing exactly what you need to know for the exam. So I don't know that I have a good handle all the time on some of these other topics. So it's always good to get your feedback on here's a topics or here's a certification that we would like. From the chat room, how do you practice the performance-based questions? Well, you just go back and look at the last year of study groups, and you look at the last 12 performance-based questions I provided you in those study groups. That's a great way to practice. Another great way to practice is, since we're mentioning it, my practice exams books have performance-based questions, 15 total, 5 for each exam that's in here. That's another great place to practice performance-based questions. So you've got a few options there to go through. Performance-based questions, I think some people overthink them. They think that you're at a Windows prompt. There's all these different options you've got to go through. You got to click the right things on your screen. It's not always that way. It could be just a matching question. It could be like the one we did today, where you have to know what the interfaces are. Maybe you have to put things in a particular order, from highest to lowest, fastest to slowest, whatever it happens to be. So some of these you may get in the exam and realize, well, it's just a matching question. Why don't they just call it matching? Well, they don't. They call it a performance-based question. So don't overthink it. And also, by the way, everything on your performance-based question, they are topics that are listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. So they're not going off script. You already know the content. They're just asking you the question in a different way. So think of it that way. That might help you as well. Let's go back to the phones. 914 area code. Ding. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you're calling from?
Hey, Professor. My name is Eric. I'm actually calling from Tampa with a New York area code.
Hey, Eric from Tampa. What can we do for you?
Well, wanted to first tell you thank you. I just passed my CompTIA cert last Thursday.
Nice.
I did it a little bit non-conventional way. I scheduled the Core 1 and Core 2 back-to-back.
Wow.
So I did it Wednesday and Thursday.
And what was your strategy behind doing that? What compelled you to do the back-to-back?
Usually for me, it's like usually once I get involved in something, I have to get it done right away. So it's like I didn't want to kind of have something too drawn out. And I'd probably not recommend people to do it that closely together. However, I would say, yeah, keep them close because there is some overlap in some of the stuff.
Yeah, you've probably heard of some of my study groups before where I tell people you can do that, but you probably need to either really, really know the material or have already worked in the industry for a while. I would agree that's probably not the best possible strategy, but it is one that some people like yourself say, I just want to get over with. I will cram through all the material. I will do whatever I need to do to get through both of those, and I'm going to take them back to back. Well, okay, if that fits your study style, it fits the way you operate, well, who am I to say any different? And in fact, in your case, worked out perfectly.
Yeah, yes, it definitely did. I will say, too, on the performance-based questions, I know you just mentioned something about that. Very, very important, guys. If you're like me, probably the best thing and advice that I got was to flag the questions and come back to it. Because on my test that I did, both Core 1 and Core 2, the performance-based questions were the first questions that got asked.
Yep.
And I pretty much kind of freaked out both days. Like I almost got into a panic. And if it wasn't for the ability to flag them and then come back at the end, then when I came back at the end, then it all made sense and it all seemed simple to kind of do both those, both on the Core 1 and Core 2.
A lot of people don't realize you can jump to any question on the exam at any time. So some certification exams, if you ever take a Cisco CCNA exam, you have to take question 1, you answer question 1, you submit it, it goes to question 2, and you can't go back. If you suddenly realize, oh wait, answered that one wrong, well, it's too bad. You already put it in, you can't go back to it. But CompTIA, you can jump to any question at any time. So jumping over the performance-based questions, maybe reading them as you go through. I'm going to read that one. Okay, keep going. Read that one. Keep going. Go through that handful of questions, then get to multiple choice. I think that's a good strategy.
Absolutely.
I'm glad it worked for you as well. So congratulations. It sounds like able to get the A+. What is now the next step for you? What are you going to do with this knowledge, and what do you do next for your certifications?
That's a great question. I am considering going for the Network Plus, but I'm also thinking about more doing like a customer success role in like a SaaS company rather than going the full IT route.
Sure.
But I'll see where this takes me.
That's one of the best things you can do. In my world of IT I have worked in a technical role, a management role. I worked in a marketing role, which I would not say is pure technical, but I was a technical marketing manager, and then ultimately moved back into a systems engineering technical role. So I feel like I've kind of did a cycle of things myself. You have different interests at different times, depending on what you're wanting to do. And I think that's one of the huge benefits of IT. The goal, of course, is to get all of the experience and knowledge you can so that you can move to wherever you'd like to move. It's just that IT makes it so much easier for you to make those decisions and to turn on a dime. If what you're doing now is something that doesn't quite fit you 5 years from now, you go do something else and the options are there. So you really cannot go wrong, Eric.
Perfect. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your call. Best of luck. Great to hear that success story as well. That I think is a lot of fun. Whenever they go after the exam, in his case, took him back to back. Ugh, that's crazy, but he did it and it worked. So sometimes the plan you put together is the plan that actually makes it happen. Let's go to the 862 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from? Caller. Hello, caller.
Good afternoon, Professor Messer. My name is Sakar Michelle. I'm calling from New Jersey.
Thank you for calling. What's your question?
It's not a question. It's more of a comment. I just wanted to say I passed Core 1 and Core 2 watching your video, so I would like to leave advice for other people who are going to take the exam.
Fantastic. Congratulations. I'd love to hear more about how you took them, the order you took them in, and tell us about your set of advice for the folks listening.
Thank you. So first I went into Reddit and I typed in I went to Google and typed in what is the best way to study for A+. I looked on the Reddit forum and someone mentioned that, okay, you watch Professor Messer's videos. During the videos, type the notes. So that's what I did. Then after you go through all his videos, review your notes maybe 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 5 times. Review your notes. Next step, you take Jason's Dion course on Udemy where he has a practice test. You take that course, you go through his practice test and you listen to his advice. Like one of the advices he mentioned was the first thing, and you mentioned this as well, the first questions you're going to get performance-based questions. Those questions take a lot of time and they're time wasters. So by the time you go through performance-based questions, you won't have that much time to finish the rest of the questions. So he mentioned and you mentioned just ignore them, not ignore them, but skip them, flag them, and focus on the other questions. So that is my advice I would like to leave. I just want to say thank you because your notes were very detailed. It was organized. And as long as you review and you put in the work, you'll be okay. I did 30 minutes a day because that was all I had. I started from January and I took January up to April, 30 minutes a day. That's what I could have done.
That is not a lot of time during the day. If you can fit it into that 30-minute period and get through all of these exams and pass those certifications, anyone can do this. I think all of those recommendations were great, and I congratulate you on earning your A+ certification.
Thank you very much, Professor Messer. Thank you for your videos as well.
Thanks for your call. It's very valuable. I appreciate it. That I think is the key, is that everybody has a different style of study. Everybody has a different set of resources available to them. Everybody has a different amount of free time during the day. And that's one of the things I always run into is there's a lot of things happening during the day. If I had to stop and study for a certification exam, it would take me a long time. I might have an hour here and there during the day to be able to put something in there. It's not a lot of time. So I think any chance that you can get to kind of structure the exam study experience, this caller is a perfect example of structure. So what a great process to go through and ultimately successful. Back to the phones, 508 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hi, hello, sir. My name is Vouchers. I'm calling from Saudi Arabia.
Thanks for calling. What's your question?
Okay. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you so much for your service, and you are an inspiration to me. And I appreciate so much your knowledge, and the fact is you are willing to share this knowledge, especially for free. So it's not enough to say thank you. So thank you so much for your contribution, sir.
You're very welcome. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to donate in YouTube, but that feature not supporting my region. I'm really sorry. Next time I would try. So I hope I can donate to your contribution.
That's very kind of you. As I mentioned earlier, watching the videos and participating in the live streams and calling in is valuable enough. And I appreciate you even considering the idea of donating in the website, but not even necessary. You watching the videos is donation enough. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. My question is, my English is my second language, so I'm really sorry for that. So I hope you would bear with me.
No problem.
So my question is, I wanted to. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, sir. My question is, I'm scheduling my A+ Core 1 exam end of this month. So I wanted to get into cybersecurity entry level any position. So I will tell you my story, sir. 4 years before, so I dropped out from higher secondary school. Then I got chances to join the computer center. So I studied about computer hardware and the software, fixing the bugs and install Windows 10 and 7 XP, everything. So that time I would go to colleagues and students, my friends and my relatives. So I got a lot of opportunity to fix computers, hardware. So that time lot of problems because something laptop dead. Then I spend a lot of money, family problems. So when I asked money to my family because laptop sometime dead, computer problem, computer when I fix the computer opening at assembly in December in time, sometime I don't have proper tools, so lot of problem faces at that moment. So then I got an chances to laptop center. So I studied about a lot of laptop repairing, opening, assembling, and deassembling, how to fix like a capacitor, resistors, MOSFET, even deep like that. Then I one day I think about like I don't have any chances because I need to become good cybersecurity engineer. I don't have any proper education, proper certification. So I wonder about my career. So then after 1 year, I got another chances to like IT industry, something, how to say, it's like a big institution. So like a support technician. So after my family, they told it to me, you don't want to focus on career like you're.
I think I see where it's going, though. I think we're sort of following along in the chat room too, because I think I see where you're going with this. Is that you've got a good foundation already built. You've done experience with the software and the hardware. The laptops and being able to get the laptop repairs are incredibly useful at kind of getting that foundational piece. But the question, and you sort of mentioned this at the beginning, and I think that's where you were heading to, is getting the cybersecurity piece of this. It's finding a job that deals with security. And I think there's a little bit of misconception in the way we present it in the industry, is that take your security plus and then you go get a security job, which I don't think anybody ever says, but it seems like it should be that way. I also see a lot of training on the internet talks about get your security plus so you can work in cybersecurity. But the reality is a lot of the entry-level jobs in IT security are rare. It's hard to find an entry-level security job. Security jobs are usually a couple tiers up. So you kind of start at the bottom and you work your way into networking and you become a networking expert, and then you can kind of get into the security roles. There are some places, though, that have security roles that are for a security operations center, which is sort of like a help desk, but for security. You can kind of think of it that way. And because of that, there are a number of entry-level jobs for security. So if that's something you're really, really interested in, you're wanting to go that direction on the security side, that's what I would recommend too, is to get either find those entry-level jobs, however rare they are, that focus on security. But I think your much higher percentage path is going to be to move into a traditional help desk role, which it sort of feels like you've gotten already. You already have a lot of that knowledge. The next step might be to move it up to the next level. Maybe it's a level 2 or level 3 engineer or level 1 engineer, depending on where you work. Depending on where that is, you move up to a higher level engineer, or you move into security, or move into networking rather. One of the things I mentioned in IT security is a huge percentage of what you need to know in a security role is based on your knowledge of networking. And I don't think a lot of places mention this enough, is of course you need to know the security pieces. You need to understand firewalls and intrusion prevention and SIEMs and VPNs and IPsec and being able to work with all of these technologies together. But all of that has a strong foundation on the security side. So if I had to mention to somebody who's interested in security, what do I do next? I always say, go become an expert in switching and routing. That is going to help you more than you would believe in an IT security role. Become an expert in switching, become an expert in routing. Don't just know switching and routing. Don't just know how to set up a router. So this goes well beyond a CCNA. CCNA is your starting point with switching and routing. You want to move up the ranks and really become an expert in the switching and the routing piece of it. I think that if I had to give you one piece of advice in getting into the IT security roles, that would be my advice, is to branch out into those roles dealing with networking. Hopefully that can give you some perspective along the lines, and maybe that will help as you're trying to find that next job. Let's go back to the phone, 786 area code. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hello, this is Thomas. I'm in the Miami area.
Hello, Thomas. What can we do for you?
Yes, I really want your advice on something. I'm actually taking my Network Plus tomorrow, so this is a Network Plus question.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
What I really need advice on is the differing materials and the different information on those different materials that can often be conflicting. What I mean is, for example, one source, like in your videos, you talk a lot about the Cat5e is, of course, 1 gig. But then you have other sources. I'm not going to name any sources, of course, but they are very, very insistent on Cat5 does not get that 1 gig speed. And another just really silly example is, for example, when you have wide network technologies, the WAN technologies, some people saying that T1, T3, E1, E3 are leased lines. And then in your videos, you specifically state that they're circuit switched. And then you'd think, okay, maybe that's like a subsection or something. But then they're like also different answers. So my question is, if I meet that in a test, most likely it's not going to happen. But if I see two questions, like two possibilities, what do I do? Do I go for the one that I know is right, or the one that I see more often in different sources?
Boy, this is one of those things. I mentioned this, I don't know, all the time. This comes up all the time in the Network Plus study groups, because for some reason there are certain topics in networking, and a lot of this is based on the way we did it back in the day, and just topics have not been updated with the latest technologies. There are some sources for this content that are just completely wrong. So the way that you determine what is right is you go to the source. This is what, for some reason, other training materials don't do this. But let's take your first example, which is what category of cable is the minimum that you would use to support 1,000 base T networking? That's the question, really. That's the point of contention that you find in these sites. And I don't have the answer to that. The other sites don't have the answer to that either. The only person who gets to determine the actual answer to that question is the organization that manages 1,000 base T. They set the standards for what 1,000 base T can do, and that would be the IEEE. Now, you can download the IEEE 802.13 specifications from the IEEE website, and they tell you very plainly, very obviously, it's been this way since 1,000 base T was introduced, that the minimum category of cable supported for 1,000 base T is category 5. It's in the standard. It's published. It was the original published specification. It has never changed since the time it was published. But for some reason, and you see this on the internet all the time, a topic or a thing that people latch onto suddenly gets copied everywhere, and suddenly somebody who wrote something has sort of turned it into the answer, as if that is the actual representation of this, regardless of what the standard says. So my recommendation whenever you run into those situations is don't listen to me, don't listen to other people, go straight to the source, go straight to the standard and see what they say, because that's the right answer. The people who designed Ethernet are the only ones who are able to tell you what the minimum specifications are for using Ethernet. And I think that's the one that if you ever had to determine who do I listen to, what is the right answer, it's whatever the person who created the standard has to say. That's the right answer. So when somebody, and this is, by the way, probably will never come up on an exam, but probably because of this problem, if it comes up, category 5 is what the specification says. That's the right answer. Now, the problem is if you go on the internet, I would say half of what you find is going to be a different answer. For some reason, it sort of has a life of its own, and it's now out of the lab, and it's now copying itself from place to place. And every single one of those answers that specifies something other than the standard is incorrect. Those sites are just plain wrong. And they continue to, they won't correct themselves. They continue to double down. No, I'm right because I thought it, and that's what I think it is, and therefore that's what it is. Well, what about the standard? I don't care about the standard. I care about what I think. I guess. I don't know why they keep going down that road. They double down and say, no, this wrong answer is what I really believe is correct. I don't know why that is. Now, in the second example you gave, that's one that I think is very easily figured out because I mentioned leased lines. Leased lines describes the renting of a set of wires that is brought into your facility from a third-party provider. Just like you would lease a home or lease an apartment, you can lease these lines. You can lease the copper that they're bringing into your building. And T1, T3, those types of technologies, being circuit switch technologies, lend themselves to being lease line configuration. So in that particular case, the leased line is how you pay for it. It's the structure that's put on your cost of that particular circuit. But circuit switched versus packet switched is really another set of criteria. It's a different set of criteria. And circuit switch versus packet switched is the one where you would make the determination on whether Ethernet, which is packet switched, is very different in how it operates than T1, which is circuit switched. So that is one of those situations where it's sort of, you can describe a T1 in many different ways. It is circuit switched. It usually is provided as a lease line configuration. And so that it sort of builds on itself. And there's a lot of, it seems like it's differing content, but it's actually describing exactly the same thing in a different way.
So it'll be basically depending on the context in which it's provided.
Almost always. You know, I mentioned lease lines. The reality is it's kind of hard to even find anywhere that will install a T1 these days, if there even is one. And why would you? It's such a slow, old technology. When they put those lines in the ground for T1, that's all that could ever go across those cables. That copper can't be used for something else. So that's why we kind of threw out T1, because Ethernet, you can run data over Ethernet. You can run video over Ethernet. You can run voice over Ethernet. You can run everything over Ethernet. And then you can move it so that it connects to different places without even having to reconfigure the network. You just throw it out there and the router figures out where it needs to go. That packet switching is amazing. And that's a big reason why you just don't see people using circuit switching in that context any longer, because it's old, it's inflexible, it's stuck. Those wires are stuck doing that. They won't do anything else. And you got to pay for it every month, and it's stuck in the wall, and it costs a lot of money. And that's probably why you just don't see it much anymore.
I mean, unless you would want it for yourself, correct?
Well, you probably...
Like nobody else...
I don't think anybody will sell it to you. If you went over, normally you would get a leased line running T1 from a network service provider. So I used to install a lot of T1 when I worked in Miami. I was down off 826 by the airport, and I would install tons of T1s and T3s into our buildings. This was back in the 90s. We'd bring it in and plug it in and connect into the building, and we'd have it there. But now if you try to buy it, you go to AT&T. At the time, it was Bell South. You go to Bell South, you go to AT&T, you go to Sprint, you go to any of the local providers, and they would sell you that internet, that network connection, that T1 connection. If you went to any of those companies now, they wouldn't sell it to you. They probably don't even have the equipment in the back anymore to plug into. They threw out the T1s and converted everything over to a packet-based, a packet switching solution, because it's so much more flexible, it's so much less expensive, you can do a lot more with it, and it's much faster. So why would you even put in a T1 or T3 these days? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So you don't see very many of those going in anymore.
All right. That's actually very informative. Thank you. So basically, go to the source, always.
Always go to the source. Don't trust me. Don't trust anybody. Trust the people that wrote it down the first time. They'll tell you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. That's, it's one of those challenges. It's somewhat frustrating for someone who's creating training materials to double, triple, quadruple check my materials, put them out there, and then there's a perceived conflict now that, wait, Professor Messer says one thing and this other site says another thing. Now I don't know who to trust. Like, well, okay, don't trust anybody. do what I do. I don't even trust what I write down. I always go back to the source. Always go back to the standard in the case of Ethernet 802.3. And why? Maybe there's just a human thing that we don't want to say that we're wrong, because I'm wrong. By the way, I'm wrong all the time. I can easily get things wrong in these videos all the time. I try to double, triple, and quadruple check myself because I know these are going to be out for years and you're going to be watching them. And in the case, over the years, I found new information because I used to think that 1000 base T could only run on Cat 5e because a lot of sites say this. And then I read the standard and I'm like, I've been wrong. That's not even right. How did we get to that point? And I think there's a reason why that happened. It's a long story, much more time than we have today. But there is a reason that it's sort of morphed into this. The part that confuses me is why people won't correct themselves, because it's obviously incorrect if they say anything different than the standard. And the right answer always is follow what the standard says. There is no such thing as a CompTIA answer. There's no such thing as an Amazon answer. There's no such thing as a Microsoft answer. The answer is what it is. It's the truth. It's the answer. And in IT, we've standardized all these things. There's a document somewhere with the standard information in it. So that's where you need to go to get the details of what you're looking for. Now, we can always talk about our opinion of a technology. That's a little different. But for understanding a technical piece of a technology, go to the standard, and I think you'll be fine. Works for me. Back to the phones. Let's go to 509 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Miguel. I'm calling from Washington State.
Hey, Miguel. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you for what you do. I've learned a great deal from your content.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I have one question. You've probably been over this already. I'm currently enrolled in a 4-year program for my Bachelor of Science in IT, and I'm in my first year. However, I'm considering going the other path where it's self-training, self-acquisition of certs. What would you recommend?
It is sort of a struggle to figure this out. Part of the challenge I've seen, and I've looked at this recently in the available training or really the 4-year degree areas that are out there right now, it's very difficult to find a well-established IT, information technology degree. Most of the ones that I have seen maybe focused solely on certifications. Well, you go through this certification, then you do this certification, and then you do this certification, this certification, this certification. At the end of it, you have an IT degree. We'll give you a 4-year degree from that, or 2-year degree for doing all those certs. And I don't necessarily feel that that is exactly correlating back to a formal degree in IT. It seems like we just did a bunch of certification exams. Not that that's any better or worse from a knowledge perspective, but when you get a formal degree, it has a particular representation for an employer that you have been through a higher education system where you have done some detailed thinking and planning and projects around these technologies, which you still could do in the process of doing certifications, because at the end of this, you also need certifications to help you through the process. So it's hard first to find somewhere that has a well-structured IT program for some reason. If you go to most large, well-established state universities, most of them have they have computer science degrees. And as I mentioned on other study groups before, computer science is not the same thing as IT. It's not even close. There's a little overlap. In that Venn diagram, there's barely an overlap of those two things. So computer science is not IT. We'll put that over there. Well, that leaves IT, and the organizations, the 4-year organizations or 4-year colleges that I've seen with IT degrees tends to be more engineering, or it tends to be more focusing on programming for some reason. I'm not sure why people who are not technical have this idea that the only thing that has to do with computers is you program. You learn to code. That's what computers is. But I've never learned to code. I mean, I do some coding but that's not exactly my focus. IT is where I thought was really the focus. So it's hard to find that. I think that if you're planning to get into IT and you're really wanting a degree in IT, I think you can't help but get some of these certifications under your belt, because ultimately the four-year colleges aren't going to do it for you. They're not going to teach you. And by the way, this isn't hard. You need to teach people what Windows is. You need to teach people Windows Server. You need to teach people switching. You need to teach them routing. You need to teach them some of the security things thrown on top of that. That's what we're doing in IT. What about databases? What about data centers? What about voice over IP? What about, there's all these technologies they never teach at a university for whatever reason, except the employers in IT. That's what they want. That's what they're asking for. They want you to be knowledgeable in voice over IP and Windows Server and Active Directory and switching and routing and data. That's what they want. For some reason, nobody's teaching us that. It's a weird place to be with technology. It's a weird ongoing theme in information technology. And I'm not sure if it's because some organizations don't feel that IT is worthy. I kind of get this feeling that they don't think it's valuable for some reason, except if you walk out of a college with an IT, with IT knowledge, you're making more than the economics major is making. You're making more than the business management person is making. You're making, or at least just as much as these professional degrees have. So why wouldn't you understand that? For some reason, I think they think of it as a computerized form of being a plumber. I don't know. It's as if they look down on it for some reason. But it's and by the way, plumbers make good money, and then they have a hard job to do and a valuable thing to do. I love being the technical plumber, by the way. Being knowledgeable in this technology, understanding how it works, understanding how to implement it, how to put it together, how to fix it when it breaks is incredibly valuable to an employer. And ultimately, that's the thing that's important to me. I need a job where they're going to pay me well, and I want a job where I can earn more as I learn more. And this is very rare that you would find an area where you can do something like this. IT is one of those. So I say if an organization wants to give you these, go through a process where they're helping you earn certifications along the way, and at the end of it, they call it an IT degree. That's really not a bad combination. It kind of is a 1-2 punch. You get your formal degree and your certifications at the same time, and now you can jump into the job role or jump into at least the hiring process with some of these certifications on your back. You can pull these out. You can tell some stories about the projects you've done.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir.
I appreciate the call, Miguel. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And in the chat room, we're sort of talking about that. You know, a computer science is where a lot of people just assume you need to know. And computer science is a complex degree to get. I'm not in any way dismissing that, but it's a different degree. It's like saying, well, do you want to learn about computers or do you want to learn about economics? Well, those are two very different things. Well, IT and computer science are two very different things. And I'm not the one. I don't want to learn how to program. That's what computer science is. You're building hardware. You're building software. You're building applications. You are coding for a very simplified form of description. Computer science is coding. IT, there's no coding there. There is some automation. There is scripting. But I separate those out very specifically. Coding is building an app. Coding is building an application. In IT, we're automating, we are orchestrating, especially on the cloud side. We're making things simple and faster and automated so we don't have to do it over and over again. Python, PowerShell. If you do nothing else in IT and you learn one of those, learn Python, learn PowerShell. That's the coding that you do in IT. That is about as much as you would need. You can, of course, add on to that with some shell scripting, some batch scripting, some even PHP. Do some other things along those lines. But if you know PowerShell and you can make it dance, and you know Python and you can make it dance, you're good. You can do almost anything in IT. You can do amazing things in IT with just those two skills alone. And then throw on top of that your knowledge of Windows Server, your knowledge of Linux, your knowledge of networking, of switching, of routing, of security infrastructure, of IPsec implementations, of SIMs, of multi-factor authentications, of all of those things. You just build on it from there. And along the way, you're going to use PowerShell. Along the way, you're going to use Python. Those are two very, very powerful skills, and ones you should, of course, consider doing if you get into this. Back to the phones. Let's go to, thank you for holding for so long, 661 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello, caller.
Hi, how you doing?
Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Saeed. I'm calling from London.
Another London call. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
No problem. It's not exactly to do with A+ in a sense, but
Sure.
I was just wondering, could I use your material, like specifically your material, like on your website and stuff, if I was to buy your, I think, like the notes package and all of that? Would I be able to use specifically just that to study? Because I've been trying to look at textbooks and stuff by Michael Myers, and I just feel like I'm not one of those people just to sit down and read a textbook for every word that's in there and kind of study, if you know what I mean.
I get it. I absolutely get it. And I will tell you that there are people that have come to my site. Usually these are people that are already knowledgeable with some of these technologies. They have watched my video course and just watched my video course and gone and taken the exam, and they've passed. That is not what I recommend in the first video of the course, though. For all of you watching, if you've never gone through that first video of my course, which is how to pass your CompTIA A+ certification exam, I recommend 4 different things during your study process. Those 4 things are, first, the videos, because I made the video course to cover every topic from the exam objective. So I tried to cover, at least at a bare minimum, everything you would need to know to pass the exam. So I think that's why many people will focus on the videos to do that. And I recommend watching some videos, at least one set, whether it's mine or someone else's. The other thing that I recommend, even though it perhaps isn't the primary source for you, and you may not like books very much. And in fact, there's a lot of people that just don't like going through books and reading through them. They don't get a lot out of them. But the books contain so much more information than you could ever fit onto a video, because the book presents the information in a different way. It allows you to go through it in a different way. And we're not saying that you need to read every aspect of every line of everything in the book, but you may want to sync it up, may want to watch the video and then skim the book to see if there's anything else in there you might have missed or that weren't covered. And now you've kind of got a combination of things. And I think reading a book teaches you in a different way. It fires different synapses in your brain. It links together the information in a different way that you just can't do in a video. There's also things in the video that you can't do in a book. So they really do work together. I do highly recommend that, number 1, you watch videos. Number 2, you get the books. Number 3 is hands-on. And yet another way to solidify some of these topics into your brain, especially maybe not so much on the 2001 or the 1002, but the 1001 rather. But the Core 2 exam has so much Windows, has so much Linux command line. There's a lot of command lines on that exam. And so that's a good one to sit at the command line and type in ping. We'll look at the results and really understand what the ping command is telling you. And then do the same thing for traceroute. And then do the same thing for dig and NSLOOKUP. It takes you through all of those as you're working through them. All of those are going to be valuable. And I think doing them hands-on, it's something about the process that also locks it into your brain. So that's the third thing I recommend. And lastly, I recommend you doing very good Q&A, high-quality Q&A. That's a little different than maybe the Q&A you would find for free on the internet, but find some questions and answers that are written in the same style as the exam, that have all of the topics covered that you would find on the exam, that are well documented and are not telling you the wrong thing on the set of Q&A. These are hard to find, by the way. It's hard to find really good Q&A. But that's the fourth thing. So if I had to say your best possible chance for passing the exam will be to include something from all 4 of those study groups: the videos, the books, the hands-on, the Q&A. Now, could you get away with only 3 of those, only 2 of those, maybe a single one of those, perhaps. You might, depending on your knowledge of the industry, your knowledge of the technology, what you've done previously in different jobs. You may not need a book. You may not need hands-on. You may not need Q&A. But I think probably the majority of us that are going through certifications would do well for ourselves if we at least had access to all 4 of those things. So that's my recommendation. Plus or minus, you can create a different strategy for yourself, but maybe that will at least give you a different approach to maybe how you would want to study for these certifications.
All right. Thank you very much.
I appreciate the call.
I really appreciate you taking out the time for the answering the question.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. That's always a struggle when you're in the middle of studying. There's so many resources from so many different places. You're never quite sure exactly what may be good or not good. And I like the caller earlier who was mentioning they went to Reddit, they asked people, they got recommendations from them. They went to Discord, they asked people there. Bringing all of these ideas together. What did you use? How did you feel about using that? What did you use? What did these work for you? What book did you find was best? What Q&A do you find is best? People have different opinions about different things. And I think it's good to take all of that in and then figure out, now where do we go from here? Do I need a book? For example, you go to my website, I don't publish a book. I'm not interested in authoring a book, a textbook. I, of course, have books. I have my practice exams book. So I guess in a way I have books, but it's not the textbook. And I don't plan to do a textbook. The practice exams and the course notes, these are actual books or digital versions you could also get. But a textbook, I think, is an important piece of that. Even though I didn't write one, I still recommend that you get one. If you go to my site, in the pull-down menu for each category of certification, I even have a set of recommendations. Like, you could try these. Start with these 4 books, look through them, see if any of those make sense to you, and maybe one of those speaks to you better than others, because all books are different. Try as many as you can. Amazon lets you go through them and read through them. So I think that would be a good one to do as well, is read through the Amazon look inside option, read through the book and see if it's one. If you read through the first few paragraphs, you're thinking, I'm never going to make it through this book. That's not the one for you. But then you grab another one and it seems to speak to you better. You seem to understand the language the author is using a little better. It's a different voice. It's a different style. Maybe you'll find a style that works better for you. And I think that's the way to do it. Find as many different options as you can. It's really going to help you in the long run. Well, that brings us to the end of another study group. We had a great first hour with the Q&A. Thank you for your questions in the chat room. Thank you for your support in the chat room. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned earlier, I saw KevTech donated $5 earlier. Keep educating and pushing people into IT. The IT community loves you. I love you too. Everybody who here, that we're in the middle of this crazy experiment of creating the content and putting the free videos out and creating as much information as we can for you to pass these exams. The goal is to get you a job or get you a better job. And we're working every day to make sure that you can do that, at least have the opportunity. That's all I can really ask. Thank you for your participation and being here. We couldn't do these study groups without you. The phone calls, the Q&A that you have in the chat room, just phenomenal. Thank you for your financial support. Thank you for support on the website. Don't forget about the vouchers that are now available. It's a great way to support what we do here, and we appreciate it every time we do it. Come back in a couple days. Thursday, we're doing the Core 2 study group. We'll do this whole thing all over again, but with Core 2 questions. So that's the real key. Have a look at those. See what you think. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everybody.